I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, A Glimmer of Hope. As if she had had a long dream, Sun Jiao woke up from her coma in a daze. Do you speak English? Gradually regaining consciousness, she realized that she seemed to be in a shaking environment. In the car? Yes. Very good. My Chinese is very bad. Catherine chewed gum and grinned. She tried to focus her vision, but it seemed that a veil was covering her retina, and she could not see anything. Only in the haze, she caught a glimpse of a figure. Where is this? You, what did you do to me? Sun Jiao suddenly woke up from her confusion and struggled in shock and anger. The chair creaked, but her struggle was useless. When she found that her hands and feet were tied to the chair, her pretty face gradually lost color, and her bright red thin lips trembled. Recalling the moment before she lost consciousness, she desperately realized the seriousness of the matter. She might have been kidnapped. We haven't done anything to you, at least not yet. You'd better pray that your boyfriend makes the right choice. Catherine smiled, but her voice was cold. How much do you want? Sorry, we don't want money. Catherine shrugged. Sun Jiao tried hard to focus her pupils and see the kidnapper's face clearly, but it was in vain. As if she was in a fog, she couldn't see anything clearly. In order to prevent you from seeing things you shouldn't see, we use special drugs to temporarily block your vision. Believe me, this is for your own good. As if she saw through Sun Jiao's mind, Catherine said in a relaxed tone. Click. The sound of bullets being loaded sounded. Sun Jiao shrank back suddenly, her face full of fear. Michael, it's not fun to scare hostages. The black man who was fiddling with the radio equipment replied casually, while busy with his work. Really? Maybe it's because I've been in Iraq for too long. Shaking the M9 pistol in his hand, the white man named Michael grinned and said, I heard that Gris is here too. I wonder where that guy is. Team A is responsible for action support. If we face the plan head on, he might go. Catherine said lightly, then looked at the driver in the front seat. Alec, how long will it take? About half an hour. They left Lake City long before the public security network was set up to block them. After all, they are not ordinary kidnappers. If even the local public security can catch them, then they don't want to be agents. They might as well find a piece of tofu and kill themselves. According to Jiang Yao's plan, Group B will be responsible for the final persuasion of Jiang Chen. Group C will take the hostages to the predetermined location, wait for the news from Group B, and then decide whether to leave Jiangxi, go to the coastal Fujian, and cross the strait through special channels to enter Yizhou and exit the country. If the negotiation fails, Group B will deal with Jiang Chen, and Group C will also kill him. If the negotiation is successful, Group C will continue to move forward along the planned route and take Sun Jiao out of the country. Team B will follow suit and transfer Jiang Chen overseas. As for Team A, it is mainly responsible for dealing with possible general staff agents or Chinese soldiers and covering the evacuation of Team B. Catherine had memorized the mission briefing, but she didn't expect things to go so smoothly. Squinting her eyes and looking at Sun Jiao, who was full of fear, she grinned and put the Scar assault rifle in her hand aside. He is not my boyfriend. We are just in name only. Sun Jiao said in a trembling voice, trying to persuade the kidnappers to let her go. She has always lived in a peaceful world and has never seen such a scene. Really? We will know whether it is true or not when the time comes. But you'd better pray that he loves you, otherwise we may kill him. Catherine smiled and ignored her words. Hearing her words, Sun Jiao felt her hands and feet cold, and a strong despair rose in her heart. Her lips trembled, and her throat felt like a lump of cotton, and she couldn't say anything. Please, someone come to save me. She closed her eyes in despair. Jiang Chen was driving the car, while Aisha was sitting in the passenger seat. The two had already left Lake City from a small road. When they passed the temporary checkpoint, the police did not detain them. It seemed that Lao Dao had not woken up yet and had not reported Jiang Chen's loss of control to his superiors. The phone rang, and Jiang Chen glanced at the caller. Zhang Yaoji. A sneer appeared on Jiang Chen's lips. Was it really that guy? It was obviously not a coincidence that Zhang Yaoji appeared in the lakeside restaurant at noon. Turn on the device and get ready to lock the position, Jiang Chen said lightly. Aisha nodded, then took out the radio tracking device and then opened the map on the app on her wrist. Parking the car on the side of the road, Jiang Chen pressed the connect button. Hello, Mr. Jiang. I wonder what you think about it? Zhang Yaoji asked in a cheerful voice. Where is Xiaoyu? Jiang Chen said lightly. Who is Xiaoyu? I'm sorry, I don't know what you are talking about. I'm just a consulate staff member. Zhang Yaoji smiled. Consulate staff? Haha, then why don't you stay in Wanghai City and come to Hacheng? Jiang Chen sneered. Of course it's to deal with diplomatic affairs. Does your country have laws that restrict the travel of embassy staff? Zhang Yaoji said in surprise. Aisha showed the app on her wrist, and the red dot stopped at the Wanghai City consulate. After leaving the Linhu restaurant, did you take the high-speed rail directly back to Wanghai City? I'll ask again, where is Xiaoyu? Feeling Jiang Chen's anger, Aisha stretched out her hand with some concern, and held his hand with concern. The cool touch came from her hand, and Jiang Chen felt that his emotions calmed down a little. Glancing at Aisha with gratitude, Jiang Chen took a deep breath and his eyes regained calmness. At this time, the more anxious you are, the easier it is to make mistakes. Only by calming down your brain can you think of a way out. Just like the time in Ukraine. Seeing that Jiang Chen calmed down, Aisha smiled gently and let go of her hand. I don't understand what you are talking about. But if you are looking for someone, why not give me your email address? I have a special address that may be able to help you, Zhang Yaoji said with a smile. If he said something he shouldn't say on the phone, and it was recorded as evidence, he would face charges of espionage. He would never do such a stupid thing that would dig his own grave. Jiang Chen calmly reported his business email address. Soon, the phone next to his ear vibrated, and the email had been sent to his phone. If anything happens to Xiaoyu, believe me, I will make you regret it, Jiang Chen said calmly. Haha, that's really scary. By the way, it's better for you to go alone. If I find out that someone from the general staff followed you, something bad might happen. The call was hung up. Zhang Yaoji was stunned for a moment, then laughed and threw the phone on the table. Haha, interesting. Chapter 252. Who said I want to go with you? Outside Yangjia garment factory, a car was parked on the side of a small road about 200 meters away from the factory gate. This car was obviously not his Maybach S600, but a Santana that he bought from a second-hand market that was still open for 100,000 yuan. After all, he didn't want his beloved car to be scrapped in the crossfire. Jiang Chen got out of the car, looked around the surrounding environment, and then walked towards the garment factory that had been abandoned for who knows how long. This was the agreed destination, 12 kilometers away from Hacheng. The factory was surrounded by bare farmland except for the foundation covered with weeds, and there were no people nearby. However, just outside the door of this sparsely populated factory, Jiang Chen saw 4 vans that were not very suitable for the scene. 2 men wearing peaked caps stood at the door of the garment factory. There must be something hidden in their bulging down jackets. Their hands were always in their pockets, and they must be holding weapons. Jiang Chen raised his lips in a playful way and walked towards the door without any fear. Seeing Jiang Chen coming, the two exchanged glances, and one of them walked over. Nice to meet you, Mr. Jiang. I wonder if you have kept your promise? The man stretched out his right hand and smiled. He was referring to the promise to go alone. Can't you see for yourself? After saying this, Jiang Chen ignored the hand he stretched out and walked into the garment factory. As he kept stretching out his hand, an awkward expression appeared on the man's face. Looking at the expression of his companion who was standing guard with him, he shrugged awkwardly and put his hand back in his pocket. Aisha did not follow him, and Jiang Chen gave her another task. As Zhang Yaoji requested, he went to the appointment alone. The center of the factory was lit with a dim incandescent light, and a figure could be seen faintly by the window. Pushing open the door of the factory, Jiang Chen looked around at the several people in the hall, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. bulletproof vests in urban camouflage colors, black assault rifles with a metallic texture. It must have taken a lot of effort to get these things into the country. 15 CIA agents were distributed in various corners of the factory. Only 5 of them stood at the door to greet Jiang Chen. The man in the lead exuded a dangerous aura. Although his specific strength could not be confirmed, based on intuition, this man should be stronger than Robert's bodyguard Nick. He must be the Gris that Natasha mentioned. Gris nicknamed the Hungry Wolf. Very good, they are all here. Are you Jiang Chen? Seeing Jiang Chen come in, the white man standing in the middle of the factory put out his cigarette, grinned, and took out a photo from his pocket. The wrinkles on his face twisted together, and his green eyes were full of fierce light, looking up and down at Jiang Chen. That's right. Jiang Chen said lightly. Since you are here, you must have made a decision. Gris shrugged and said, of course. But before that, I need to talk to Sun Jiao on the phone. Jiang Chen looked straight into his eyes, and said in a deep voice, don't worry, Yellow Monkey, the hostages are safe. After all, we are the CIA, not the IS. The American standing next to him mocked. Really? I have never understood the difference between these two organizations. You. Hearing Jiang Chen's mocking words, the American was immediately angry and rolled up his sleeves and pretended to step forward. Krem, shut up. Gris glanced at his teammate and said lightly, yes. The burly man immediately lowered his head and stepped back honestly. Facing this captain with terrifying strength, he really didn't have the courage to argue. Reporting the name of the organization he belonged to was already a violation of discipline, but seeing that the mission was about to be completed, Gris didn't say anything. Tilting his head, Gris said to the person next to him, give him the phone. Okay, sir. The soldier with a baseball cap took out a walkie-talkie from his tactical vest, walked towards Jiang Chen, and handed it to him. With a barely perceptible smile on his face, Jiang Chen took the intercom and gently turned on the radio tracking device with his other hand in his pocket. Let Aisha handle the matter over there. Hello. Sun Jiao. Jiang Chen, where are you? Listening to the haggard voice, Jiang Chen tried to suppress his anger, took a deep breath, and spoke in a calm tone. How are you now? Have they done anything to you? Not yet. Who are they? Her voice was full of helplessness and fear, but her voice was not hoarse, so she should not have suffered any cruel treatment. After confirming that Sun Jiao was safe, Jiang Chen felt a little relieved. However, just when he was about to buy more time for Aisha, the communication was hung up. So far, you only have 10 seconds to confirm the safety of the hostages. Gris grinned, took out a lighter, and lit another cigarette for himself. Now, your choice determines the life and death of you and your girlfriend. Of course, you don't seem to have many choices. Slowly putting down the walkie-talkie, Jiang Chen looked into Gris's eyes. Oh, I don't think so. Silently adding in his heart, Jiang Chen put his hand in his pocket, threw the radio tracking device into the storage space, and then took out a paper-like remote control, and pressed the switch. The wide area signal jammer in the trunk of the Santana parked outside the factory was instantly turned on, blocking all electromagnetic wave signals within a radius of 5 kilometers. Krem, check his equipment. Ignoring Jiang Chen, Gris tilted his head and said to his comrade standing aside, okay, boss. He twisted his neck, making a crackling sound, and walked towards Jiang Chen with a grin. He had already made up his mind to teach this arrogant guy a lesson. For example, he accidentally crushed one of his testicles during the body search. Before you leave here, we need to check your equipment to prevent you from carrying a positioning device. Of course, if you resist, there may be some unpleasantness. Looking at Krem walking towards him, Jiang Chen suddenly smiled. Leave here? Who said I want to go with you? Hearing this, including Gris and Krem, the 5 people surrounding Jiang Chen were stunned. Without giving them a chance to react, Jiang Chen had already pulled the fuse of the EMP grenade and smoke bomb in his pocket before he finished speaking. Buzz. The buzzing sound of the electric current sounded, and the light bulb suddenly went out, and the factory building fell into darkness in an instant. At the same time, the smoke suddenly spread from Jiang Chen's position, hiding his figure. Kill him. Shouting at the top of his lungs, Gris immediately issued the order to kill. At the same time, he raised his rifle and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Dada. The flames jumped, and the intersecting firepower tore apart the cloud of smoke that hid Jiang Chen's figure. The empty factory was filled with the sound of gunpowder exploding, and the crisp sound of metal shells falling to the ground. Because the retina could not adapt to the sudden change of light, everyone's vision was dark. However, the people present were veterans who had been through many battles. Even with their eyes closed, they could tacitly shoot to block all the escape routes of the target. Cease fire. The gunfire stopped, and the smoke dissipated. In an instant, the factory returned to silence. The thick smoke spread at a uniform speed, gradually touching the green smoke rising from the muzzle. The 5 CIA agents in the center of the factory kept their guns raised horizontally and locked the position in the center of the smoke. Although the smoke had not yet dissipated, no one would doubt that the ignorant Oriental man had died tragically. It was simply impossible to escape from such a fierce firepower net. Keeping the shooting posture was just the discipline of the soldiers. "Boss, he's dead." Krem couldn't help, but said while flexing his knuckles. Gris stared at the center of the smoke. The target was undoubtedly dead, but the growing sense of uneasiness in his heart was lingering. The smoke was like the devil's eggs, as if something was going to walk out of it. Was it an illusion? However, at this moment, his dark green pupils suddenly shrank, and the calmness on his face, that belonged to an elite soldier, disappeared in an instant. "Got." The voice was tinged with despair. Krem, who was about to crush Jiang Chen's balls, trembled and retreated with his rifle. The cold steel armor shell reflected 5 terrified faces. The T3 power armor wrapped the whole body, and the triangular barrel rotated at high speed. Jiang Chen opened the safety of the weapon module with a grim smile. "Let's play a game." Chapter 253, Killing Armor. The streamlined steel shell looked like a future warrior from a science fiction movie. The high-speed rotating triangular barrel emitted a chilling cold light under the moonlight. "Hide." While screaming, Gris was the first to roll over and fall to the bunker beside him. Just as his back touched the concrete wall, a storm of bullets came roaring. Krem, who was closest to Jiang Chen, had no room to dodge at all. He maintained a terrified look and was dismembered into pieces by dozens of ballistic lines. The 3 CIA agents who were unable to dodge also died tragically under the concentrated firepower network. The muzzle fire illuminated the armor, and the CIA agents hiding around the factory began to pull out their rifles to fight back. However, the sporadic bullets nailed into the C-type plastic steel armor of the T3 were as weak as scratching an itch, leaving only a series of crisp ping-pong sounds, and could not even leave the slightest dent on the armor shell. This is the technological gap. With the lethality of individual weapons in the current world, if it is not a heavy anti-material sniper rifle or a vehicle-mounted heavy machine gun, it is impossible to pose any threat to the T3, which inherited the highest level of pre-war airborne power armor. If it is a land-based power armor, I'm afraid that only the main gun of the M1 tank can be used. At the moment when the EMP mine and smoke bomb were thrown just now, Jiang Chen directly traveled back to the end of the world. Long before coming here, he had moved to the armory in advance in the end of the world. After traveling back to the end of the world, he directly put on the power armor parked at hand, and then returned to this side. With the cover of smoke, the CIA people naturally could not see his series of actions. In their eyes, this power armor seemed to appear out of thin air, and they would have an expression of seeing a ghost. Jiang Chen, wearing a power armor, was like a devil walking out of the abyss, and completely destroyed their psychological defenses with firepower. "I'm shot. Medic. Tom is down. Damn it. What the hell is this? Got, make him stop." The voices seemed to be crying. Cement blocks were flying everywhere, and Gris was clinging to the wall. The explosion of the machine gun almost made him lose his hearing. "Smoke bomb." With a roar, he pulled the smoke bomb from his waist, threw it out of the bunker, and crouched to move towards his teammates' positions. Switch to thermal imaging. Got it. The 9 surviving CIA agents replaced the scopes on the assault rifles in their hands, then leaned out of the bunker and aimed at the center of the smoke. However, at this moment, they were all stunned. There was a ball of white mist in the scope, and nothing could be seen. Jiang Chen, who was in the center of the smoke, grinned, and a series of red dots instantly appeared on his retina. Frenzy. The revolver machine gun was put away, and he pulled out the tactical rifle from his waist. The agents who had come out of the bunker To fight back had no time to react, and a few bullets blew off the heads of 2 people. After paying the price of 2 lives, the CIA agents had to retreat back to the bunker again, sticking their rifles out of the bunker and fighting back sporadically. Damn it, you failed at the critical moment. Damn it, wait until I get back, I'll stuff your head into the toilet. After secretly cursing Zhang Yaoji, who was in charge of logistics, Gris gritted his teeth and pulled off the thermal imaging scope. Fear filled his whole body, and the facial muscles of the hungry wolf were extremely twisted. It has been a long time since I felt this feeling, the feeling of adrenaline secretion. Pulling off the walkie-talkie hanging on the tactical vest, Gris shouted at it at the top of his voice. Group A and Group B are under attack. The enemy's firepower is too strong. The operation failed. Repeat, the operation failed. However, there was no response from the other end of the walkie-talkie. Gris was stunned. Not only the thermal imaging, but also the walkie-talkie failed. It was as if an unknown force destroyed all the electronic equipment. The comrade beside him stretched out his rifle to fire back, but he could no longer hear the gunshot. He let the cement debris cut his cheek and took out the holographic sight. There was no red dot on the screen. It was also broken. An inexplicable fear filled his whole body. Gris's eyes were wide open, and the whites of his eyes were full of bloodshot. An asymmetric war. Invulnerable individual armor. Mysterious weapons that destroy all electronic equipment in an instant. Who are they? Exclamation mark. This can't be the plan. China can't have such military technology. From Afghanistan to Iraq, Gris, as a hungry wolf, has become accustomed to admiring the fear on the enemy's face. Use laser guidance to mark, and then watch those garbage flee under the firepower of VAC 130. Laugh at those bumpkins who don't even know what thermal imaging is, desperately burrowing into the bushes, trying to avoid the harvest of the death god in the air. But he never thought that one day he would be the hunted. No, it can no longer be described as a war. This is a massacre. At this moment, hot blood splashed on his face, interrupting his momentary hesitation. Looking up, he saw that the comrade who was still firing back a second ago had lost his head. In just 2 minutes, only 5 of the 20 CIA elites drawn from Iraq were dead. Retreat. All retreat. Gris roared after recognizing the situation, took out the grenade, and stuffed it into the weapon pendant, leaned out of the bunker and shot into the smoke. The explosion sounded, and regardless of whether it was an effective hit, he quickly rushed to the back door of the garment factory and fled. The grenade exploded at the shoulder of Jiang Chen's power armor, and the broken shrapnel scraped a harsh sound on the armor shell. However, Jiang Chen just shook, and was not affected. Letting the desire to tear his heart swell in his heart, Jiang Chen held the tactical rifle and shot, while walking straight towards the position of the CIA agent. His pupils suddenly contracted, and his eyes immediately locked onto a red dot. The moment the man leaned out of the bunker, he pulled the trigger and killed him without a doubt. Considering that they would not encounter armored forces in the concealment of the operation, the CIA agents did not carry heavy equipment such as anti-tank rocket launchers. With only the anti-infantry grenades and rifle grenades, it was impossible to cause any damage to the power armor. Want to escape? Jiang Chen grinned and looked at the 4 CIA agents who began to retreat mockingly. He stopped frenzy and walked slowly to the door with his rifle. From the moment the gunshot sounded 2 minutes ago, the 2 people standing guard at the door realized that something was wrong. They pulled out the rifles hidden in their down jackets and leaned against the bunker to start alert. The communication failed, and they were completely confused about what happened in the factory. Shit, boss, what happened in there? Seeing Gris running towards him with his rifle in a panic, Ryan, who was standing guard at the door, cursed and hurried over to ask, "Idiot, get in the car." Gris grabbed the idiot who was running towards him and pushed him towards the van. This was the first time he saw such an embarrassed expression on the face of the hungry wolf. Ryan, who realized the seriousness of the problem, did not dare to say anything more and hurriedly sat in the driver's seat. Several other agents also quickly boarded the van. "Where is the communication equipment in the car?" Gris asked with a heavy breath. "Nice. Everything is normal." "Shit, no signal." The agent sitting in the back seat punched the door of the car hard. "Fuck. After swearing, Gris glanced at the situation outside the car window and saw that the iron lump did not chase out, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. I guess the iron lump also has weaknesses, such as poor mobility. The car had already started, and he couldn't care about anything else at the moment. He just wanted to leave the area quickly and send this explosive intelligence back to the CIA headquarters in Virginia. Compared with the source code of the drone program, it was obviously the iron lump and the mysterious weapon that instantly paralyzed the entire team's electronic equipment that were more shocking. If all these equipment came from the organization behind the man named Jiang Chen, then the CIA would have to reformulate its strategy against the mysterious organization. Just when his tense nerves relaxed a little, he heard the driver scream, "WTF? What is that?" About 4 disc-shaped aircraft flashed in front of the car window. Under the disc, there was a black hole of the muzzle. Cold sweat dripped from his forehead, and the driver stepped on the accelerator, although he knew it was too late. Fire flashed, and the muzzle under the hummingbird drone spewed flames. Before he could react, the CIA agent in the car was killed by the rampant bullets. Poor mobility? Gris was just overthinking. The reason why he didn't want to come out of the factory wearing the power armor was entirely for the sake of confidentiality. It was obviously not a wise move for such a big target to be exposed outdoors. Although it was a wilderness nearby and there should be no other people, it would never be wrong to be careful. Back to the end of the world, Jiang Chen took off the power armor in the armory and traveled back to the present world again. He used the radio life detection device to scan the outside of the factory. Looking at the only red dot that was lit, Jiang Chen grinned, took out his PK-2000 from the storage space and put it on his shoulder and slowly walked towards the van with broken glass shards all over the floor. Blood seeped out from the gap of the car door and flowed all over the floor. Red and white mixed together, sticking to the windows and seats everywhere. Looking at the miserable situation in the van, Jiang Chen was secretly shocked, but there was no sympathy in his heart. After recovering the hummingbird drone, he dragged Gris, who had been shot several times and was already dying, from the co-pilot seat to the concrete floor, and then took out a hemostatic spray from his pocket and sprayed it on the wounds on his body. At this time, Gris was covered in blood, and his former ferocity and calmness were gone. Rather than calling him a hungry wolf, it would be more appropriate to describe him as a dead dog. Can't speak. Jiang Chen looked down at him, kicked his arm, and said with a playful smile, "I can't tell you where the hostage is, and you can just wait to collect the body of your girlfriend." Gris stared at Jiang Chen's eyes, with blood foam at the corners of his mouth, and spoke intermittently. "Haha, that's not necessarily true." Jiang Chen took out a recorder from his pocket and threw it on Gris. Just as Gris looked at his actions in confusion, Jiang Chen grinned and spoke. "I ask, you answer." In his hand, he held a truth serum. Chapter 254 Sniper. Team B has lost contact. Negotiations have failed. Plan second will be implemented. I repeat, negotiations have failed. The communication sound, accompanied by the noisy sound of electricity, came from the intercom lying on the ground. Xia Xiao looked around in horror, but she could not see anything. Just now, she heard a crisp sound of glass breaking and the sound of a heavy object falling. There was no sound in the room. The room was dark, without a trace of light. This made her vision blocked, and she saw only endless darkness except for the window reflecting the moonlight. The negotiation failed, so did it mean that they were going to kill each other? Thinking of this, she felt a strong despair in her heart. The originally clean jeans were covered with dust and rubbed against the ground weakly. The rope tied her tightly to the corner like a poisonous snake, and no matter how she struggled, she could not move at all. Jiang Chen. A weak murmur squeezed out from the thin lips sealed with tape, and Xia Xiao closed her eyes tightly. Would he save her from despair, like he did that night? Save me? Although she knew that this possibility was slim, and that she might be cut in the throat by the kidnappers who decided to kill her in the next second and fall on the cold floor. But she still expected something in her heart. The target is shot dead. The voice without any emotion floated from Aisha's lips with a mist of breath. Under the crotches was a female corpse, with blonde hair mixed with blood scattered all over the ground. The 12.76mm bullet directly split her skull, and the CIA female agent died under her gun. Did you catch up? Her chest rose and fell violently. From the moment she received the two-dimensional coordinate signal from Jiang Chen, she almost stepped on the accelerator to the bottom and rushed all the way here. After getting off the car, she used the fastest speed again, rushed to the tallest unfinished construction site nearby, and then lay down in the current sniper position. It was almost a race with the god of death. If nothing unexpected happens, the battle on Jiang Chen's side will almost begin from the moment the coordinate signal comes. Although he will definitely use signal shielding equipment to block the other party's communication, the long-term loss of contact will inevitably arouse the suspicion of the other party's commander. Fortunately, the place where the group of hostages hid was not far from the abandoned garment factory, and she finally arrived before the other party found out that something was wrong and killed the hostages. Moving the crochets, Aisha observed Zai Xiao's condition. The hostage's mood was relatively stable. He didn't react to the shooting at all, probably because his vision was blocked. This is also good. If the hostage screams because of stimulation, it will make the situation worse. Speaking of which, is she the husband's other wife? Well, she's pretty. While thinking this, Aisha reached out and turned on the radio life detection system next to the scope. The blue ripples swept across the site from top to bottom, and several red dots were quickly marked on the scope. Aisha moved the muzzle of the ghost sniper rifle and continued to aim the crochets at the white sentry, who was warming his hands at the iron gate. The second one. She muttered to herself and pulled the trigger. Bang! The bullet penetrated the man's skull, and blood mixed with brain matter spilled all over the floor. The sentry was shot dead, and the other party finally realized that he was exposed to the muzzle of the sniper. The two red dots hiding behind the building moved quickly and rushed into the building. There was no ripple in her heart. For her, killing was as easy as breathing. For Jiang Chen, the target is exposed. The next step should be to control the hostages. Muttering to herself, Aisha raised the muzzle of the gun and moved back to the room where Zai Xiao was, aiming the crochets at the door. Sure enough, the red dot climbed up to the third floor and moved to the edge of the door. The other party did not rush in. It was obvious that the room was definitely within the sniper's shooting radius. Smoke bomb? Unfortunately, it doesn't work on me. Ignoring the small crack in the door, Aisha pointed the gun at the concrete wall and pulled the trigger. Damn, it's a PLA sniper. Someone betrayed us. Michael held the loaded pistol and breathed very quickly. We may have been surrounded. Let's control the hostages first. The black man holding the assault rifle seemed very calm and took out a smoke bomb from his waist. If you encounter a sniper in China, you don't even have to think about it. It must be someone from the military. These agents are like mice running under the feet of an elephant. If they reveal their whereabouts, they will only end up being crushed. This is not Iraq, and the US aircraft carrier cannot use firepower to cover their retreat. However, just when the black man was about to throw a smoke bomb into the room, the concrete wall he was leaning against exploded instantly. The bullet went straight through the 10cm thick concrete wall and tore his head into pieces. Fuck. Michael cursed and immediately ran to the stairs. At this moment, he no longer cared about the hostages. The enemy sniper's bullet seemed to have eyes. He just wanted to leave this damn place as soon as possible. After running to the first floor, Michael immediately climbed out of the window and rolled to the back of the abandoned building. Leaning against the thick wall, he gradually regained a sense of security in his heart. It was normal for a bullet to penetrate a wall, but it was impossible to penetrate a building. Looking at the open space about 20 meters next to the building, he struggled a few times in his heart, but he really didn't have the courage to rush over. Shit, what is that idiot Miller doing? He cursed, but at this moment he had no way to do anything. Miller was the sniper responsible for supporting their operation, but at this moment he was silent. Because he was acting alone, he was not in the team communication channel of Group C. The only one who could contact him was the dead Captain Catherine. Hidden? Muttering, Aisha stood up, put away the sniper rifle, and walked downstairs. Due to the threat of sniping, the other party would never return to the hostage room. Moving quickly along the bunker, her petite body quickly closed the distance with the target building. After breaking into the courtyard wall, Aisha pulled out the Type 11 pistol from her waist and walked towards the CIA agent hiding behind the room. Her steps were light, like a cat, without making any sound. A horrifying feeling suddenly crept into Michael's heart, but the moment he turned around, his sight met the black muzzle of the gun in Aisha's hand. Bang! Ignoring the body lying on the ground, Aisha walked towards the room where Sun Jiao was imprisoned. Chapter 255. The bullet. Killing is easy, but the trouble is how to deal with the aftermath. There are a total of 22 lives, and they are all elite agents in the CIA. If the CIA knew that these were all done by Jiang Chen, I'm afraid they would jump up like a cat whose tail was stepped on and launch crazy revenge on him. If nothing unexpected happens, Jiang Chen might be lucky enough to break the record of 634 assassinations set by Cuban leader Castro. This pot cannot be taken by him anyway. Just now, using the truth serum, Jiang Chen had tortured all the details of the plan from Griss's mouth. The two action teams have died in his hands. If nothing unexpected happens, the C team should have been solved by Aisha now. In addition, Zhang Yaoji also specially requested a sniper from the US Marine Corps to support this operation to deal with possible troubles. However, with Aisha's combat effectiveness and black technology equipment, it should be no problem to kill the sniper. All the countermeasures are deployed against the agents of the General Staff. But I'm afraid that Zhang Yaoji will not believe it, even if he is beaten to death. There are only 2 people who annihilated all the CIA agents. The death toll was close to 30. This was probably the heaviest loss for the CIA since the Bay of Pigs incident during Kennedy's time. During the interrogation, Jiang Chen used the voice-changing software on his iPhone to change his voice beyond recognition, so he didn't have to worry about the identity of the interrogator being equated with himself. Picking up the recorder from Griss's clothes, Jiang Chen looked at the dull face in silence, took out the Type 11 pistol from his pocket, pointed it at his forehead, and silently pulled the trigger. Bang! The pupils gradually dilated and lost their spirit. Griss stopped breathing, ending his bloody life. Unlike the time in Ukraine, no one could be left alive if the power armor was seen. Sighing, Jiang Chen put away the pistol and began to deal with the aftermath. Including Griss, the 6 people in the van were dragged into the abandoned garment factory by Jiang Chen and placed together with other bodies. It was a bit troublesome to deal with Krem because he had been broken into pieces. Jiang Chen felt the nausea again after a long time. Those pieces of meat were still hot. After removing all sensitive items such as documents and communication equipment, he carried all the bodies to the end of the world in batches and burned them outside the fishbone base. After returning to the present world, Jiang Chen used a blood-melting agent to clean up the blood on the ground. In this way, the traces of their existence in the present world were completely wiped out. The traces of the battle were obvious, but the bodies were not found. What Jiang Chen had to do next was to make the CIA believe that the agents involved in the operation were not dead, but were all arrested and locked up in a secret prison. Imprisoning nearly 30 agents, the only one who could do this within the territory of China could be the country itself, and a private person would never have this ability. After all, imprisonment is not like killing. Killing only requires 1 bullet. But to lock people up, at least a prison and prison guards of no less than the number of prisoners are needed. If there are fewer people, these elite agents may not be locked up. Without finding the bodies of the agents and being unable to prove that they were dead, the CIA would certainly suspect that it was the agents of the General Staff who had arrested them. If someone was arrested, the United States would definitely save them according to its usual style. However, China, which had not arrested anyone at all, would naturally not admit that it had arrested anyone. If China did not first condemn the US's espionage, the US would not be able to come to the door with a shameless face and confess the CIA's activities in China, right? If it did so, the United States would lose face. If China did not first condemn, even if the US wanted to plead, it would be impossible. Since the problem could not be solved through diplomatic channels, it could only continue to make small moves. Therefore, the focus of the CIA's operations in China would be shifted to the detained agents for at least 1 year, thus ignoring Jiang Chen, a small character. Even if the search was fruitless in the end and these people were deemed missing, the CIA could only conclude that the General Staff had secretly dealt with these people and would never link their deaths to Jiang Chen. As for how the General Staff would deal with it, that would be the next step. Now, what Jiang Chen needs to do is to make this recording appear in the right place. With this in mind, Jiang Chen took out the satellite phone from the storage space. Hello, robots. Help me. The ropes at the wrists and ankles were cut, and Xia Xiaoyu swallowed her saliva as she watched the girl neatly insert the dagger back into her waist. She asked with a trembling voice, "You, who are you?" Her vision had not yet fully recovered, so she could not see the girl's face clearly, but she could tell from her beautiful outline that she should be very beautiful. Aisha, Jiang Chen's bodyguard. Anyway, they would work together in the future, so it shouldn't be a bad idea to tell her name. With this in mind, Aisha hesitated for only half a second before she said her name. I don't know what expression Xia Xiaoyu would have on her face if she heard what Aisha was thinking. Bodyguard? Xia Xiaoyu had never seen Jiang Chen and a bodyguard before, and she couldn't help but feel a little confused. Yeah, I met him in Iraq. Aisha answered simply. Iraq. Xia Xiaoyu had some impression, as if Jiang Chen had been there for a while. Although she is still confused about what he did there. Who are these kidnappers? They seem to have kidnapped Jiang Chen for their purpose. It was surprising. Although she knew that she had encountered such a terrible thing because of Jiang Chen, she did not blame Jiang Chen at all in her heart. In the eyes of others, am I already an important person to him? Thinking of this, Xia Xiaoyu's heart beat a little faster. The only thing that made her feel a little disappointed was that it was not Jiang Chen who appeared beside her at this moment. But it made sense. She really couldn't imagine the scene of Jiang Chen holding a gun to save her. The kidnappers this time were not ordinary gangsters, but fully armed soldiers. In her impression, Jiang Chen might be good at fighting, but he was not good enough to fight against foreign agents. Why would foreign agents target Jiang Chen? Because of Future Man technology. But Future Man technology is just an ordinary private enterprise. It is not to the extent of attracting the attention of foreign agents, right? Xia Xiaoyu was not aware of Jiang Chen's involvement in Xianglong II, so it was no wonder that she thought so. Although ZTE High-Tech had discussed a cooperation project with Future Technology, she did not know the specific details of the project. Jiang Chen was mainly responsible for the negotiation. She had a vague feeling that Jiang Chen was being targeted because of that project. I'll take you away first. If you have anything to say, let's talk in the car. Aisha's voice interrupted her thoughts. Jiang Chen will come here to clean up the battlefield in a while. It would be better to take Xia Xiaoyu away before that. Yeah. Xia Xiaoyu swallowed her saliva and nodded and whispered. Seeing her nervous look, Aisha's cold face couldn't help but reveal a smile, and she comforted her softly. Don't be so nervous, they are already dead. Huh? Why are you more nervous? Looking at Xia Xiaoyu who began to tremble, Aisha tilted her head in confusion. No matter what, let's get out of here quickly. Shaking her head, Aisha stretched out her hand to Xia Xiaoyu who was sitting on the floor and said considerately, if you can't see, I can lend you my hand. Although she was a little scared, Xia Xiaoyu took a deep breath and tried to suppress the fear in her heart. She trembled and reached out her hand to hold the little hand that was reaching out to her. However, at this moment, a warning suddenly surged into Aisha's heart. Almost subconsciously, she pushed Xia Xiaoyu away. At the same time, the bullet passed through the window and hit her chest. Chapter 256 Cold-blooded. Blood spurted out of her mouth, and as if she was hit by a car in the chest, Aisha's petite body flew out and hit the wall hard. If she hadn't been wearing a mechanical exoskeleton, she might have died. Blood slid from the corner of her mouth. Aisha didn't dare to hesitate, enduring the severe pain in her chest. She rolled to the side several times on the ground. Almost at the same time, another bullet almost rubbed her and hit her original position. The splashing cement scraps brushed her cheek, and the 12.76mm bullet left a deep pit as big as a bowl on the ground. After escaping from the area that could be directly observed through the window, Aisha finally breathed a sigh of relief and gritted her teeth to tear off the torn coat on her chest. Even if injected with genetic drugs, bullets are equal to everyone. Although the lethality of the rifle in the present world is one level lower than that of the apocalypse, the power of the sniper rifle is still unquestionable. Judging from the degree of damage on the ground, the opponent is likely to use an anti-material sniper rifle Barrett M82. The bullet was deflected, but it still left a dent on the polyethylene bulletproof plate. The huge kinetic energy made Aisha feel as if her chest was hit by a car. Xiao was completely shocked and lay motionless on the ground. Aisha, don't come over, lie down. Seeing Xiao wanted to come over to help, Aisha hurriedly raised her hand to stop her. The concave part of the front armor just hit her sternum, seriously affecting her breathing. Swallowing the blood in her mouth, she gritted her teeth and reached out to remove the polyethylene bulletproof plate on her chest. It was originally disposable, and since it had been cracked, there was no point in hanging it on her chest. Taking a deep breath, Aisha calmly pulled out the smoke bomb and threw it out the window. Stay where you are and don't move. If you feel difficulty breathing, try to stay close to the floor. Worried that Xiao would stand up, Aisha spoke. Yeah. Lying on the ground, the smoke concealed the pretty face full of fear. Aisha moved her body and picked up Catherine's helmet and assault rifle, then returned to the window. She took out a lighter to heat the helmet. Then Aisha pointed the helmet with the rifle and slowly reached out to the window. Bang! As soon as she showed her head, the helmet was blown away by the bullet. Is there really a thermal imaging? Aisha frowned and looked at the door. The other party obviously went to the sniper point she just left. In this case, the door must be within the sniper range. Unable to move, she was completely suppressed in this room. This was the first time she faced sniper suppression in reality. What should I do? Taking a deep breath, Aisha tightly grasped the ghost sniper rifle in her hand. The severe pain in her chest made her consciousness a little dazed, and she almost relied on her consciousness to hold on so that she didn't faint. Her body temperature gradually became cold and her consciousness began to slow down. The EP flashed a barely detectable light. Aisha, who noticed that the EP was abnormal, hesitated for a moment and reached out to open the EP. Hidden gene code. Cold blood. Lower the body surface temperature to the limit. Shrink the life signal to the level of dead objects so as to achieve the effect of invisibility from various non-optical reconnaissance equipment. Side effects. The metabolic rate is reduced to the limit, affecting wound healing, and long-term use may cause shock. Genetic hidden code. Eliminate the heat source. Can this really be done? No matter what, I can only take a gamble. Taking a deep breath again, feeling the body temperature dropping to the limit and the heartbeat slowing to the limit, Aisha squatted at the edge of the window with the ghost sniper rifle. The bullet did not fly, and a smile rose at the corner of her mouth. In the smoke, if there is no help from thermal imaging, the other party cannot see her. Activating the thermal imaging function on the scope, the cross is locked on the bright spot at 1,000 yards. Goodbye. Aisha pulled the trigger, and blood splashed in the lens. Killed. Muttered to herself. At the same time, her tense consciousness finally reached the limit. The smoke began to dissipate. The sniper rifle slipped from her hand, and Aisha fell to the ground. Aisha. She could vaguely hear someone calling her name, but she couldn't hear the next words. She was so sleepy. She really wanted to take a nap. Waking up from his coma, Deo struggled to get up from the ground. Fuck, this guy hit really hard. He touched his pocket and found the gun and the phone in his pocket. This is a big problem. Rubbing his bruised cheeks, Deo sat down on a bench nearby with a grin. It was already completely dark, and after lying on the concrete floor for so long, Jiang Chen must have run away. Taking out his cell phone, Deo called Jiang Chen. The user you are calling is out of service area or has been turned off. The announcer's voice came to his ears. Should I say it's expected? Deo sighed after hanging up the phone with a wry smile. Just then, his phone rang. Hello. It's me, Mao Jun. A somewhat weak voice came from the other end of the phone. Xiao Jun. Where are you now? Deo was startled and asked hurriedly. Although the voice sounded very embarrassed, it was indeed Mao Jun's voice. Originally, Deo had no hope, but he didn't expect that he could escape from the hands of the CIA. If he saw the agent's face, it would undoubtedly bring a turnaround to the deadlock. On the other hand, although he didn't say it, he was indeed worried about the safety of this immature apprentice. I'm in the suburbs. Hold on. Tell me the address. I'll come pick you up right away. After getting the address, Deo rushed into his Santana and drove to the suburbs. On the way, He reported to the headquarters the news that Jiang Chen had lost contact and that Miao Jun had been rescued. Regarding the news that Jiang Chen disobeyed orders, his superior, Major General Liu, was silent for a moment, but did not get angry. He just ordered him to quickly go to rescue Miao Jun, who had escaped from the CIA. As for Jiang Chen's matter, he had already sent other people to deal with it. After the call ended, he almost drove to the location that Miao Jun mentioned. After parking the car on the side of the road, Liu Dao pulled out his pistol and rushed into the alley on the side. Soon, he saw Miao Jun leaning against the wall with his hands covering his abdomen. His body was covered in blood and his face was bruised. Seeing this scene, Liu Dao's heart suddenly rose with anger, and he rushed to Miao Jun's side and put one of his arms on his shoulders. Fuck him, don't let me catch those bastards. Seeing the CIA people tormenting his comrades into this state, Liu Dao immediately cursed. However, he froze in the middle of his words. Slowly, he lowered his eyes. Why? No reason. The blood on Miao Jun's body was fake, and the weak voice was also fake. But at this moment, the blood on Liu Dao's body was real. Because of money? Looking at the dagger inserted in his abdomen, Liu Dao's expression was slightly bitter. The gun slipped from his hand and was kicked away by Miao Jun. Perhaps because he was embarrassed to answer this question, Miao Jun said nothing, but silently stabbed him in the abdomen again. If you want to get rich, why do you have to join the army? The rising blood foam blocked Liu Dao's somewhat harsh words. In this nameless alley, the old soldier stopped breathing. Miao Jun pushed the master, who had only worked with him for more than half a month, against the wall. He took a deep breath, suppressed the guilt in his heart, took out the mobile phone and car keys from him, and then walked towards the Santana. $1 million. He could never earn that much money in his lifetime. As Zhang Yaoji said, since he had to retire eventually, what difference did it make if he retired sooner or later? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Artificial Respiration. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, and in a daze, Aisha felt something wet blocking her lips. She felt a squeeze in her left chest, her eyebrows knitted slightly, and a thin and dull moan squeezed out from her lips. This feeling was very strange, and made her feel uncomfortable. Subconsciously wanting to escape, Aisha's body twisted unconsciously. For her reaction, that strange feeling seemed to be more excited. The pressure on her left chest became heavier and faster, and the invasion between her lips also gradually intensified. Gradually, consciousness returned. Aisha slowly opened her eyes, but met a pair of gem-like beautiful eyes. She was stunned. Xia Xiao was also stunned, and the anxious look on her face gradually turned into a strong embarrassment. As for the reason for the embarrassment, it was naturally because her posture at the moment was extremely indecent. Xiangan. Because she had never done artificial respiration before, she almost lay half of her body on Aisha. One hand was on Aisha's left breast, and the other hand was on the floor, kissing, blowing Aisha's lips in an awkward posture. The two fell into silence. Aisha. At this moment, the door was pushed open and Jiang Chen rushed in. Xia Xiao had just called him and said that Aisha was in danger, so he rushed over in a hurry. However, he froze at the door before he took 2 steps. What should I say? Although Jiang Chen was indeed very relieved to see that the two had such a good relationship, he was really not mentally prepared for such a good relationship. When did you? Scratching his cheek, Jiang Chen looked away a little embarrassedly. No, it's not what you think. Xia Xiao's face suddenly turned red, and she jumped away from Aisha in an instant, waving her hands desperately to explain to Jiang Chen. Compared with Aisha, her face was much thinner. Is this artificial respiration? Aisha, who was still lying on the ground, tilted her head and said. She was also very embarrassed, but she quickly regained her composure and realized that Xia Xiao was giving her artificial respiration. It was just that the posture was too awkward. Most people would not put their front to someone when giving artificial respiration. Xia Xiao blushed and bit her lower lip. lowering her head. Although she was very scared, she gritted her teeth and rushed over when she saw Aisha fainted, desperately dragging her to a place far away from the window. After doing all this, she immediately called Jiang Chen and explained Aisha's condition to him. Just when she was about to hang up the phone and call the police, Jiang Chen stopped her and told her not to call the police first and wait for him with Aisha, and then hung up the phone. Don't call the police. Zha Xiao really didn't understand why Jiang Chen made such a judgment. However, seeing the headless body next to her, she was terrified and vaguely understood that the situation might be a little abnormal. After a struggle, she finally chose to believe Jiang Chen's judgment and did not call the police. Trying not to look at the horrible corpse, Zha Xiao focused her attention on the girl in front of her. A closer look revealed that the girl was pretty. Her eyelashes were long and her face was cute. Her skin, as smooth and white as a porcelain doll, was really enviable. Seeing this, Zha Xiao couldn't help but feel a little jealous. She had never known that Jiang Chen had such a beautiful bodyguard, and judging from her appearance, she should not be even 18 years old. But then she felt guilty again. Aisha had just saved her, and it was really rude for her to speculate on her relationship with Jiang Chen. With Jiang Chen's personality and lifestyle, he would not have anything that crossed the boundaries of their identities. Zha Xiao thought. It had to be said that she didn't really know much about Jiang Chen. Just as she was looking at Aisha and thinking about it, she suddenly noticed that the girl's chest did not seem to rise or fall. This frightened Zha Xiao, and she quickly put her finger on her upper lip. Sure enough, she was not breathing. There was no time to hesitate. Although she had never done artificial respiration before, Zha Xiao still did it. So, there was the extremely ambiguous scene just now. Thank you. Aisha smiled at Zha Xiao gratefully. You're welcome. It's better to say that I should thank you. Zha Xiao took a deep breath and bowed deeply. With a slight smile, Aisha said nothing and accepted Zha Xiao's thanks. You scared me. What happened? Jiang Chen smiled bitterly and breathed a sigh of relief. He walked to Aisha's side and helped her up. Sniper, negligence. Aisha said with a little shame. Because she was too anxious to save people, she only detected the life signal of the target building, but did not check the safety of the sniping environment, so she was tricked by the enemy sniper. Hearing Aisha's words, Jiang Chen was startled, groped her body, and asked hurriedly, "You're not hurt, are you?" "No." The polyethylene partition blocked the bullet. Looking at the concerned expression on Jiang Chen's face, Aisha felt warm in her heart and smiled gently. Hearing this, Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief. Jiang Lin, who designed the K1 mechanical exoskeleton, told him that this supermolecular weight polyethylene bulletproof partition can only defend against a small number of rifle bullets, but never said that it can defend against sniper bullets. But after thinking about it, Jiang Chen figured it out. The rifles Jiang Lin mentioned are naturally based on the PK-2000 and the Ripper, which are common pre-war standard rifles in the end of the world. Although it is impossible for this kind of light armor to defend against the sniper rifles of the end of the world, for the sniper rifles of the present world, even the Barrett M82, which is nicknamed a cannon, can only reach the extent of cracking the polyethylene bulletproof partition. The damage Aisha suffered should only be the impact of the kinetic energy of the bullet. But then the question is, if it is only kinetic damage, why did she go into shock? Although the muzzle energy of the anti-material rifle is amazing, it is not strong enough to shock Aisha, who has been injected with a gene drug, right? Ahem. Seeing Jiang Chen groping Aisha, Zha Xiao coughed, looked aside, and said with a little jealousy, although she is your bodyguard, Aisha is still a girl. Anyway, it's better to be careful. Sorry. Jiang Chen subconsciously retracted his hand. His eyes wandered between Jiang Chen and Zha Xiao. Aisha seemed to understand something and couldn't help but smile. Is it between that kind of relationship? Anyway, you and Aisha go back to the car first. I'll be there soon. Seeing that Zha Xiao seemed to have many questions on her face, Jiang Chen paused and added to her, when we get in the car, I'll tell you the whole story. Looking at the serious expression on Jiang Chen's face, Zha Xiao was slightly stunned, and then nodded. Aisha took Zha Xiao back to the Maybach first. After cleaning up the battlefield, Jiang Chen also returned to the car. As for the Santana, bought from the second-hand market, Jiang Chen parked it in a nearby community and abandoned it. It was already 1 o'clock in the morning. There was only one car on the empty road, which looked very lonely. Sitting in the co-pilot seat, seeing Zhao Xiao's face looking a little uncomfortable in the back seat, Jiang Chen couldn't help but ask with concern. "Are you uncomfortable?" "No, no." Yawning, leaning against the car door, Zhao Xiao muttered softly, "It's just a little. My first kiss was given to a woman." Aisha, who was about to start the car, was stunned for a moment, and then burst out laughing. "What are you laughing at?" Zhao Xiao's cheeks were flushed, pretending to be serious and frowning, but her voice was not confident. Artificial respiration can't be considered a first kiss. Jiang Chen also held back his laughter, and said with a little out of tune, "That's true." Zhao Xiao looked aside, and her expression seemed to be relieved. "Do you want to give your first kiss to someone?" It was rare that Aisha's cold and pretty face actually flashed a cunning. "Of course it's someone I like." "Jiang Chen, do you like him?" Aisha asked relentlessly. Why do you suddenly ask this?" Zhao Xiao's face flushed, and she spoke incoherently. Jiang Chen also scratched his cheek with a little embarrassment and said embarrassedly, "Ahem, you'd better not embarrass her," but he was blocked halfway through his words. Aisha suddenly kissed his lips. Zhao Xiao only felt a click sound, as if something broke, and the whole person was stunned there. "Your first kiss, give it to him." Turning back, Aisha smiled gently at Zhao Xiao, who was in a daze. Her deep blue eyes were full of cunning. After parking the Santana on the side of the road, Mao-chan walked to the agreed location with a complicated look. It was already 1:30 in the morning, and the road was empty. Leaning against the street lamp, he looked at the distance of the road silently, waiting quietly. According to the agreement he reached with Zhang Yaoji, as long as he killed Liu Dao and immediately brought his mobile phone to the designated location, the agreement would be completed. "If you want to get rich, why do you have to join the army?" The words that Liu Dao said before his death echoed in his ears like a nightmare. "You are so long-winded. Do you think I want to join the army?" After cursing inwardly, Mao-chan put his cold hands in his pockets. Betraying the motherland. He never thought that there would be such a day for him. Just thinking about it, his hands and feet were cold. The lights of a car were on in the distance, and a car was slowly approaching. Seeing this, Mao-chan couldn't help but tighten the pistol in his pocket. He didn't relax the tense expression on his face until he saw the face in the car clearly. The car stopped in front of him, and a middle-aged man got out of the car and looked at Mao-chan with a smile. "Mr. Mao, I believe you must have abided by the agreement between us." Chapter 258 Eternal Loyalty. Group A and Group B have lost contact, and Group C and Sergeant Miller have been confirmed dead. Sitting in the embassy office, listening to the report, Zhang Yaoji's fingers holding the phone trembled slightly. 5 lives, more than 20 people were captured, and the operation, that was originally without suspense, turned out to be such a complete failure. There is no doubt that this will become the most painful loss suffered by the CIA after the Bay of Pigs incident. The other end of the phone fell into silence, and Li Zongping, who was still in Lake City, was waiting for his instructions. "Is it the general staff who did it?" "It should be," Li Zongping said in a deep voice. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Yaoji pondered for a moment, and gave an order. "Terminate the plan and withdraw. Although it is a pity, the operation has failed. If nothing unexpected happens, the US Embassy and Consulate in Beijing will receive an inquiry letter from the Chinese State Council tomorrow, and then the Chinese side will hold a press conference to condemn the US side." His facial muscles kept trembling, and Zhang Yaoji's heart was beating. Where is the hidden line? Li Zongping was referring to the Mao army that had instigated the rebellion. Originally, their plan was that, if China put Jiang Chen under house arrest, they would use the Mao army to kill the defenseless Liu Dao, and then bring Jiang Chen out from under house arrest. However, the plan seemed to be out of their control from the beginning. China seemed to use Jiang Chen as bait to kill the agents of Group A and Group B. There was an 80% chance that the PLA troops stationed nearby were dispatched. Then, Group C, which was responsible for holding the hostages, was also attacked by PLA snipers. Was the intelligence leaked? The CIA was actually tricked by the idiots of the general staff. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Yaoji tried to calm himself down. Since failure was inevitable, reducing losses was what needed to be considered now. Kill him, he saw my face. In addition, before killing him, let him kill Liu Dao. Yes. Zhang Yaoji hung up the phone, pinched his sore nose, and then got up and left the office. Miao Zhang never thought that he would join the army, let alone be assigned to the intelligence department. After graduation, he was transferred to the general staff and became a shady agent. In terms of ideals, he wanted to be a businessman like his uncle. Or simply put, he wanted to be a rich man. However, things are not what he wants. According to his original idea, he wanted to be admitted to Wanghai University, study business, and go into business after graduation. He worked hard, and did work hard. He vaguely remembered the joyful expressions on his parents' faces when the whole family gathered together to check the scores. However, when filling in the application form, he and his parents had a disagreement. He never expected that his parents would use an almost pleading tone to persuade him to give up his ideals and apply for the National Defense University in Beijing. The reason is nothing more than his parents' concern for their son's future. Your grandfather's old comrade is now a general. With your family's connections, if you apply to the National Defense University, you will definitely have a bright future if you choose to join the army. Doing business? Do you know how hard your uncle was at that time? He could hardly afford to eat. Do you think doing business is so easy? My parents are doing this for your own good. In the end, Miao Zhang chose to join the army. Ironically, after choosing this path, the only way for him to realize his dream is to be a bodyguard for rich people after retirement. Being a soldier will not make you rich, but if you work in logistics, you can still make some money, and if you work as a civilian in the conscription office, you can also make some money, but if you work in intelligence, if you really make a fortune, it will be a bit dangerous. His parents' hard work made him embark on this path that he didn't like at all. He tried to make himself like this kind of life, but when he found that no matter how hard he worked and how well he performed, everyone would attribute his promotion to the support of that relationship and automatically ignore the sweat he had put in. Indeed, with the help of that relationship, he did rise very quickly and joined the general staff at the age of 24. At the dinner table, his parents would only feel that his grandfather's old comrade was a noble man and selectively ignored the fact that his son almost died at the Qinghai Special Forces training base during the training. Hardship? Why not? That's what you should do. If Miao Zhang wanted to complain, his father would definitely comfort him like this. Hardship? I believe no one would mind hardship if it is for a career they are passionate about. But now, he only felt a kind of torture. Facts have proved that any forced love is not true love, and this is true for careers and the country. Even though he has memorized all kinds of lengthy ideological report templates, even when he swore with everyone, he could say the oath that he didn't take seriously without hesitation. $1 million US? Of course, money is tempting, but perhaps this is not what attracts him the most. A green card, a ticket to the free world. He was moved. Freedom. It must be said that that thing has a fatal attraction. Even though he cursed because he couldn't get it, even though he comforted himself because it was okay, even after dinner, he always sat with his comrades and cursed the Americans for being worthless. Mr. Mao, I believe you must have kept our agreement. Li Zongping smiled. Liu Dao is dead. Miao Zhang looked at the weeds beside the road. His throat moved, and he spoke. Really? Then congratulations. Li Zongping breathed a sigh of relief, then smiled and took out a pistol from his pocket. Because it was too sudden, Miao Zhang didn't react. Why? Miao Zhang swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, God will give you supreme freedom. So Mr. Mao, bye-bye bang. The bullet pierced Li Zongping's forehead, and blood splattered on the car. Fuck. The CIA agent who was driving quickly pulled out his pistol. What are you waiting for? A loud shout came from a distance. Miao Zhang was startled and subconsciously pulled out the pistol from his pocket. Bang! Before the driver could get to him, Miao Zhang shot him dead. Panting heavily, within a few seconds, his back was soaked with cold sweat. At the entrance of the alley, a staggering figure came over. When he saw the face with ravines, Mao Jun smiled bitterly, dropped the gun in his hand, and raised his hands instead of running away. It was Lao Dao. For some reason, Mao Jun was relieved to see that he was still alive. Although Mao Jun knew very well that this meant that he might have to spend the rest of his life in prison. I'm sorry, I plotted against you. Mao Jun didn't dare to look at the face of the senior because of guilt. You kid, do you really think you have the ability to plot against me? Lao Dao snorted twice, covered his bleeding wound, and sat on the hood with a grin. After a pause, his dry lips trembled and continued. I took these 2 knives on purpose. If you really have the skills to escape, you won't be caught by others. If you escape, there is probably only one possibility. The old face flashed with cunning that matched his age. Lao Dao looked at this junior meaningfully and grinned. I was turned against, Mao Jun said with a bitter expression. He learned something. Lao Dao smiled, continued to cover the wound with his left hand, and supported himself on the hood with his right hand. No need, there is no chance to use it, even if I learn it. Mao Jun sighed, took out Lao Dao's mobile phone, and called General Liu. He was ready to confess and be lenient. However, at this moment, Lao Dao, who was quick-eyed and quick-handed, snatched the phone and hung up the number that had not yet been dialed. Seeing the puzzled look on Mao Jun's face, Lao Dao grinned and threw the phone aside. You don't feel ashamed to die because of your comrade's betrayal? I feel ashamed to write it in the file. Lao Dao died gloriously. I would rather write it in the last line. Died? Exclamation mark. Hearing this, Mao Jun's heart was shocked. He stared at Lao Dao with wide eyes and said hurriedly, how is it possible? You didn't mean to be hit, although it was intentional. I was hit hard by these 2 knives. Lao Dao laughed, but he coughed while laughing. Blood stained the corner of Mao Jun's clothes. I'll call an ambulance for you, it's useless. Lao Dao stopped Mao Jun's action. I know whether my body can be saved or not. Mao Jun's fingers trembled, and he froze there, not knowing what to do. The apology was stuck in his throat and he couldn't squeeze it out. He knew that even if he apologized, it would be useless. It was him who killed him with his own hands. Ignoring the expression on Mao Jun's face, Lao Dao spoke, as if talking to himself. I'm old, and I can't even beat the young people. 5 years ago, the organization transferred me back to China, and I should have retired at that time. But Lao Liu found me, and hoped that I could use my overseas work experience to play some of my remaining heat in the field of domestic counter-espionage, at least to train more successors for the Republic. I agreed. In the past 5 years, 27 young men have walked out of my hands. You should be the last one. As he said, Lao Dao looked at Mao Jun with some relief and nodded. He is also the one with the best qualifications, as far as newcomers are concerned. I'm sorry, don't apologize. Lao Dao waved his hand. Of the 27 people, only 6 stayed. The old leader asked me to do more ideological work and persuade as many talents as possible. But I have never done so. A forced melon is not sweet. As he said, his voice was a little melon-like. If you want to get rich, don't join the army. If you force yourself, problems will arise sooner or later. Hearing this, Mao Jun lowered his head, his face full of guilt. His voice became weaker and weaker, and Lao Dao continued to talk to himself. I know that my motherland may not be very good. You young people can go online, and I know everything you can see. But even so, I still believe it will be better. Before that, please protect it for me, until that day comes. But don't force it. Can I know your name? Mao Jun said with a choked voice. My name, Lao Dao grinned, and his voice was full of vitality again, as if he had a last burst of light. He took out the pistol that he had used for who knows how many years, and tremblingly threw it into Mao Jun's hand. When one day you have enough authority, you can look through my file and you will know. If you retire, there is no need to know. Return it to Lao Liu for me. You have worked for him for half your life. This gun should be returned to its original owner. After saying that, Lao Dao slowly closed his dry eyelids. This time, he really stopped breathing. Just like a sheepdog in its twilight years, it finally found eternal peace. Under the street light, on the deserted road, a man knelt on the ground, howling. Chapter 259. Response from the other side of the ocean. A lot of things happened that night. The CIA suffered heavy casualties due to the misjudgment of Jiang Chen's strength. The general staff lost control of Jiang Chen's whereabouts due to the misjudgment of Jiang Chen's reaction. Who would have thought that an ordinary person would suddenly become a fully armed Iron Man like a superhero in a Hollywood blockbuster? Who would have thought that an honest man who had always been obedient would suddenly say angrily, "Sorry, I'm not your subordinate." If you look at it from a god's perspective, the focus of all the clues is on Jiang Chen. But because of their respective intelligence blind spots and the premise that the two parties could not sit at the same table to exchange opinions, this conflict was set up by both the CIA and the general staff. Regardless of how nervous the general staff was about Jiang Chen's disappearance, someone on the other side of the ocean was extremely nervous. Although it was still early in the morning in China, it was daytime in Washington state on the other side of the earth, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington. This is the White House of the United States. At this moment, John Brennan was standing in front of the president's desk with an embarrassed look on his face. His aggressive look in the past was nowhere to be found. If it were normal, he would definitely not be so humble in front of this black man, because the CIA is independent of the intelligence system, and even Congress has no right to ask about its specific details. In this respect, he is much more comfortable than the asterisk who has to be impeached by Congress at any time. Standing next to John is James Comey, who is gloating. Compared with the old man with white hair and bald head, this middle-aged man of only 35 years old seems much more capable. There is nothing more pleasant than seeing the mortal enemy suffer a setback. That's right, although they serve the same government, the relationship between the two organizations is not so friendly. The history of the two parties' love and hate can be traced back to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in the United States during World War II. It was precisely because of the failure of the FBI in foreign intelligence work that the predecessor of the CIA, the Strategic Intelligence Agency, was born. In particular, the mistakes made by the CIA, which was keen on internal strife in the Watergate incident, and the FBI's reluctance to let go, directly led to Nixon's resignation. It can be said that all previous US presidents have a love-hate relationship with these two cockfighting left and right eyes. As for now, anyway, asterisk was so angry that he wanted to throw his leather shoes on John's face. Ahem. Before the meeting starts, let's listen to a video first. James coughed lightly, raised a finger to signal the two to look here, then raised an eyebrow at his old rival John, and placed the smartphone on ****''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''"*. The voice of the torturer was an interrogation video. The voice of the torturer was very low and slightly hoarse, and it was hard to tell whose voice it was, but the voice of the confessor was easy to identify. Briss, an elite agent of the CIA, was awarded a medal by ***** himself. However, this super soldier who had fought in Iraq several times had no spirit in his voice at this moment. Rather than being dejected, it was better to say that it was completely empty. What kind of torture did the general staff use to force this tough guy to confess all the details of the operation in just 2 hours? Just listening to the lifeless voice, the three people in the president's office were terrified. The recording ended. John took a deep breath and loosened his tie, as if he was uncomfortable. Asterisk still had a gloomy face, kept his legs on the desk, and said nothing. Seeing that the two did not speak, James smiled slightly and spoke directly. Kidnapping and coercing a law-abiding businessman is a despicable and unconstitutional act. Putting aside the fact that your people have always disregarded the Constitution, can I think that you have staged another Bay of Pigs incident after more than 50 years? Please pay attention to your words, Mr. James. I'm thinking about the national interest. John habitually retorted, but his voice was not confident. Really? But what about now? Our diplomatic relations with China have become more uncertain. The development of Xianglong II has not been obstructed, but China has caught us. We could have used gentle means to pull the Chinese businessman to our side. Where do you think CIA agents are carrying out missions? Syria? Iraq? That's China. Hearing this, John's expression was a little embarrassed, so he changed the subject. James, I think it seems a little inappropriate for you to act so happy in this occasion. No, who said I was happy? I was angry. James held back his laughter and raised his fingers to rub his upper lip. No, you are laughing. That's your illusion. Mr. John. Shut up. Asterisk 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 suddenly spoke like a fighting cock. John looked at James in a demonstrative manner, but James, who had the upper hand, just shrugged and looked at the president with a smile. Now, let's discuss how to deal with this matter. After taking a deep breath, asterisk 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 said with a gloomy face. First, we should find a way to rescue the more than 20 missing agents. Since Gris was interrogated, it at least means that they did not die in the crossfire, but were captured. John tried to calm down and stated slowly. But so far, the Chinese side has not made any statement on this matter. Should I call them and take the initiative to admit my mistakes and then beg them to release them? Asterisk 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 was immediately angry. John's expression suddenly became awkward and he spread his hands shamelessly. Then write 25 letters of condolence and send them to the families of the missing soldiers. Rubbing his sore brows, asterisk 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 sighed and sat up straight in the chair. James, where did this recording come from? It appeared in the mailbox of one of my capable men 2 hours ago. Realizing the seriousness of the problem, he immediately sent this audio file to my mailbox. James said proudly. What about the accuracy of the intelligence? We have conducted a voice analysis and compared it with Gris's voice. It matches perfectly. Yeah. Asterisk 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 just nodded and said nothing more. Let's think about how to deal with it. After all, this unpleasant has already happened. John touched his nose and said uncomfortably. Looking at John's look, asterisk 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 was so angry that he almost wanted to curse. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, you didn't inform me before the mission, and you came to me to clean up the mess when something went wrong. However, he just thought about this in his mind and didn't say it out loud. Judging from the past, American presidents who offended the CIA have never had a good ending. If he doesn't help the CIA clean up the mess this time, there is no guarantee that he won't become the next Kennedy. After all, he is the president of a country that has a tradition of killing its own president, so it is better to show some mercy when doing things. Thinking so, after pondering in his mind, asterisk 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 spoke. Immediately stop interfering with Jiang Chen. The operation has failed. Hearing this, John nodded. James, who was mainly responsible for domestic intelligence affairs, just shrugged his shoulders, as if it had nothing to do with him. If China condemns this matter, visit China. If China does not say a word about those 20 people, then it is likely that they cannot be found. If you can find them, continue to send agents to find them. Remember, don't get caught again. Rubbing his brows, asterisk 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 continued. Hearing the promise of visiting China, John looked at the president gratefully and nodded again. Visiting China means asking for mercy. As long as those 20 people can be rescued, the pressure John faces will be much less. As for the Chinese businessman, asterisk 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 selectively forgot about him. After all, it is much more important to clean up the CIA's mess than a mere businessman. It's just a Jiang second drone system, which is not rare in the United States with a wealth of talents. Chapter 260, Escape. Hong Kong, the Peninsula Hotel. In the lobby with gorgeous and elegant decoration, a young man and a foreign girl are sitting in the corner of the tea house, feeling the warm sunlight beside the bed, and enjoying afternoon tea quietly. The lobby band played melodious and soothing classical music live, and the waiter dressed in British waiter politely walked to the two of them, placed the 3-layer silver tray with desserts in front of them, and respectfully brewed black tea for them. To be honest, this British tea is not very delicious. The taste of the chocolate balls and cream puffs is no different from those sold in ordinary dessert shops. But if there is anything special about tasting afternoon tea here, it is probably the elegant atmosphere and heavy historical heritage. The hotel started construction in 1922 and was completed in 1926. It opened in 1928. At that time, it was known as the Far East Lady and was one of the most luxurious and famous hotels in Hong Kong and even the world. Of course, Jiang Chen couldn't appreciate the atmosphere and historical heritage at all. He appeared here purely for the sake of novelty. Aisha was also not very interested in those trivial things. At this moment, she was poking the soft pudding with a fork with great interest. The slightly curly brown long hair was softly draped over her right shoulder. The cute little mouth and smooth cheeks were shining charmingly in the dim sunlight. It was like a painting. Jiang Chen could clearly feel that many gentlemen cast envious and jealous eyes on him. However, he didn't care at all. He just lazily looked at the street outside the window and enjoyed the quiet and peaceful sunlight. As for why he appeared here 800 kilometers away, it had to start from 2 days ago. After killing the CIA team and rescuing Zhao Xiaoyu, Jiang Chen, who had a little conflict with the general staff, did not return to Haching, but drove day and night to Fujian. In the car, Jiang Chen told Zhao Xiaoyu the whole story, including the meeting with Wang Linhe after the party, including the specific content of the subsequent cooperation with ZTE High-Tech. After dawn, he called his parents again, saying that he had to return to Wanghai City for something, so he left first, asking them not to worry, and then turned off his phone and stopped answering any calls. With the help of Roberts and Mr. Chen, Jiang Chen, as a temporary tourist, boarded a luxury cruise ship that toured between Zhangjiang and Ludao, and got off the ship in Zhangjiang. As for Zhao Xiaoyu, she stayed in Ludao for a day, and then took a flight from Ludao to Wanghai City, and returned to Wanghai City. As soon as she got off the plane, the people from the general staff naturally contacted Zhao Xiaoyu, and asked about Jiang Chen's current location. In response, at Jiang Chen's instruction, Zhao Xiaoyu handed over the USB flash drive containing the complete version 1.0 of the UAV intelligent control system, and repeated Jiang Chen's original words to them. Although Jiang Chen's tone was very tactful, if he had expressed those words in a straightforward manner, it would have been a bit harsh. I'm very dissatisfied with the way the incident in Hacheng was handled. I have never been your subordinate, and I have fulfilled my obligations by paying taxes. However, when I have fulfilled my obligations, you want me to put the overall situation first. This is ridiculous, so I'm leaving. Although I'm leaving, it does not mean that I have given up my business in China, nor does it mean that the overseas teams working with me will give up their business in China. It's just that due to the deterioration of the investment environment, we have to reposition the focus of our business. Futureman Technology will be a branch company, and the soon-to-be established Futureman International will be the parent company. Of course, regarding the cooperation project of the UAV Intelligent Control System 1.0, we have completed the development according to the agreement. I hope that you can also provide convenience to Futureman Technology in terms of policies as promised. Yes, Futureman Technology has nearly 300 million domestic users. But don't forget that we also have more than 400 million foreign users and a billion markets to be developed. Our choices are never unique. After hearing Jiang Chen's reply, Admiral Liu was silent for a long time and finally said nothing. He just sent someone to protect Zhao Xiaoyu and then reported Jiang Chen's reply and stopped asking about the matter. The people above also had some discussions on how to deal with Futureman Technology. After weighing the pros and cons, they finally made the choice of maintaining friendly cooperation and cancelled the document restricting Jiang Chen from leaving the country, although he had already left the country. Being able to produce such military technology has already shown that the overseas technical team is indeed worthy of friendship. Jiang Chen has not been developing software during this period, so from the time cost required for software development, the actual developer of the software is indeed not Jiang Chen. The conjecture that the actual developer of the software is Jiang Chen is naturally self-defeating. From this point of view, even if Jiang Chen is controlled, it is meaningless. There was also a small episode in this. As the initiator of forcing Futureman Technology to leave, the Wang family was often annoyed by political enemies. Because of this incident, Futureman International was established, and Futureman Technology's foreign business was separated from its domestic business. As a result, the local finances of Wanghai City had to lose at least more than 500 million in foreign exchange taxes every month. Although other forces are also eager to move for this piece of fat, who asked your Wang family to do it? Such an ugly eating appearance has caused the Wang family to be criticized by the dissatisfied central government. Of course, these are all later stories. Since he has left, Jiang Chen will not come back for at least a period of time. Speaking of which, the Hong Kong businessman who was responsible for picking him up on the ship had met him once before. When he partnered with Roberts to wrestle gold, he was responsible for bringing the gold to the high seas and then transporting it to South Africa by Roberts' ship. When he met Jiang Chen this time, he was very attentive to take care of everything for Jiang Chen. Not only did he personally drive to the port to pick him up early in the morning, he also enthusiastically booked a room for Jiang Chen at the famous Peninsula Hotel. Jiang Chen did not refuse his kindness and took Aisha's hand and moved into the luxurious sea view room on the top floor. Strictly speaking, this is considered smuggling. However, after getting off the ship, Roberts prepared all the relevant documents for Jiang Chen, so he checked into the Peninsula Hotel normally. As for Aisha, since she holds a green card, she can stay in Hong Kong for a short time without any documents. The procedures have been delivered, the people from the general staff are no longer pestering him, and the CIA has other troubles to deal with. Only Jiang Chen was idle. Come to think of it, why did you suddenly kiss me then? Jiang Chen asked casually, while sipping afternoon tea leisurely. Hearing Jiang Chen's question, Aisha buried her head, stopped fiddling with the pudding, and whispered a little embarrassedly, because I want to share with her, not to exist without knowing each other. Hearing Aisha's innocent words, Jiang Chen wanted to complain. If it was Xiao, she would definitely not tolerate the existence of other women, but in the end he didn't say anything. Because his thoughts were indeed a little greedy, even if Aisha would not be jealous. As if she saw through Jiang Chen's thoughts, Aisha just smiled slightly. Stared at by those tender blue eyes, Jiang Chen was speechless for a while. Gently putting down the silver fork in her hand, Aisha continued to speak. If she leaves you because of this, it only means that she only likes you, not loves you. If she loves you deeply, she will never leave you. At least, she will try to get you back. Get you back. This doesn't seem like something that the Xiao would choose. Well, it feels complicated. Jiang Chen sighed and scratched the back of his head. Forget it, let's just let the relationship take its course. It's already January, and in order to get a quicker supply of food in the wasteland, it's better to solve the problem of the Panu Islands as soon as possible. Chapter 261 Unknown Channel Interference. After afternoon tea, Jiang Chen took Aisha to the famous Disneyland in Hong Kong. Although there were no Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck and the like in her childhood, it did not prevent her from being infected by the joyful atmosphere. The slightly raised corners of her mouth were filled with a happy and joyful smile. She did not have a colorful childhood. Since she was born, her motherland has been in a turbulent year. Seeing that lovely smile on her face, Jiang Chen also felt as if all his fatigue was cured. Although that loving smile was also beautiful, Jiang Chen still hoped that she could smile more for him. This is why he would take her to play everywhere, whenever he had the chance. Out of a compensatory heart. Take pictures in the adventure world and raft in the forest river. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the two stood hand in hand in front of the Sleeping Beauty's castle, watching the brilliant fireworks blooming in the sky. The colorful light reflected on the smiling face, which was so fascinating. For a moment, Jiang Chen was actually a little crazy. That happy smile gradually turned into shyness under his straightforward gaze. She stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips lightly. Fireworks flickered and scattered in the sky. Their lips parted. Aisha lowered her head slightly, her face also shining with charming brilliance. Thank you. Those thin lips gently moved this shy gratitude. Although Jiang Chen did not say anything, she could clearly feel that the reason why Jiang Chen chose to play in such a place was mostly to accompany her. Without saying anything like you're welcome, Jiang Chen just smiled slightly and then reached out to rub her soft hair. Are you happy? Aisha closed her long eyelashes and responded softly, putting her hand gently on Jiang Chen's hand. Yeah. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening when they came out of Disneyland, but the two did not return to the hotel immediately, but went to Taku Plaza for a walk. Since the last date in Ukraine, Aisha has been fascinated by all kinds of dresses. The two of them had no chance to look back at Heishi in a short time, and naturally they could not take the clothes that were placed in the villa. Carrying large and small bags of clothes, they returned to the Peninsula Hotel, and the two of them ended their trip for the day. Although it was already early in the morning, with Jiang Chen's style, he would naturally not go to bed so early. He closed the door of the hotel room with his backhand, and just as he was grinning like a big bad wolf and preparing to help the little sheep try on clothes, the doorbell rang at an inopportune time. Jiang Chen was a little surprised that someone would visit so late. Although he felt a little regretful, Jiang Chen still straightened his messy collar, watched Aisha enter the bedroom, and then walked to the entrance to open the door. As soon as the door opened, a handsome and beautiful face appeared in front of Jiang Chen unexpectedly. "Hello, handsome boy." Natasha leaned on the door frame with one hand and looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. Sighing, Jiang Chen prepared to close the door. Seeing this, Natasha raised her eyebrows and immediately stepped forward, grabbed Jiang Chen's collar, and pushed him against the wall. "What are you going to do?" Jiang Chen helplessly spread his hands and glanced at her arm. "If I remember correctly, you should have tried my skills in Ukraine." Natasha's expression froze, and she suddenly remembered that she seemed to be no match for him. This man, who looked not very intimidating, had amazing brute force. In Donetsk, he crushed her with just one move. But despite this, her expression did not show any sign of giving in. She frivolously leaned close to Jiang Chen's ear and blew a breath in an ambiguous tone. "Mr. Jiang, have you forgotten what you did to me in the small dark room that day? It was just an injection." Jiang Chen shrugged his shoulders and said with a strange expression, "Come to think of it, you seemed to be opposed to having sex with me that day. That was before. You didn't have any thoughts about me at all?" Natasha said in a seductive tone, and the 36E sphere captured Jiang Chen's attention. However, as soon as the voice fell, the cold hard object quietly pressed against the back of her head. "I don't know when." Aisha has appeared behind her. That unusually cold expression flickered with murderous intent. The ambiguous expression froze on her face. Natasha's mouth twitched, and she simply let go of Jiang Chen's collar and raised her hands in surrender. "Your little beauty is still so unfriendly." After a hard complaint, Natasha paused, kept her hands raised and continued, "Can you ask her to put down the gun first?" Aisha looked at Jiang Chen with an inquiring look. Seeing Jiang Chen nodded, she then obediently put away her gun. However, even though she put away her weapon, the alertness on her face did not drop at all. "I came to you for another purpose this time," Natasha said with a serious expression. "Of course, I guess you didn't come to me just to have sex." Without reacting to her serious look, Jiang Chen said casually, "Since you have already left China, why don't you come to Russia? I believe we have discussed this issue many times." Jiang Chen said softly. As if she had guessed what Jiang Chen would say, Natasha's expression did not show any surprise, but just sighed and said, "Although I had expected it before coming here, it seems that I will return empty-handed." "That's right." Jiang Chen nodded and smiled. "Well, I thought my sincerity coming here in person would be enough to move you." Natasha shrugged and walked to the door. "If you change your mind one day, Russia's door will always be open to you." "Thank you very much," Jiang Chen politely replied and sent Natasha out. After closing the door, seeing Aisha staring at him, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile and stretched out his hand to rub her hair. "What are you thinking about?" Aisha muttered in a low voice, looking away embarrassedly. "Just now, that." "Continue." As soon as the words came out, a hint of red appeared on her fair face. Although it was stirred up like this, Jiang Chen's mouth became dry again when he saw Aisha so shy. Of course. He leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Do you wash first, or do you wash first?" "I'll wash first." After that, Aisha blushed and rushed into the bathroom. After a while, the sound of water dripping came from behind the hazy frosted glass. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, Jiang Chen fiddled with the app on his wrist while waiting for the beauty to get out of the bath. Because he was bored, Jiang Chen suddenly remembered Aisha's skill called cold blood. Using it for too long may cause shock, which is a serious symptom. Thinking back to when he first gained the ability to go berserk, he could only use drugs to activate and cancel the berserk. Without the help of drugs, a novice may fall into the dilemma of activating the skill, but not being able to terminate it. Or, let's ask Sun Jiao to get some of that potion. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen activated the 4-dimensional transmitter mounted on the ebb. Although Lin Ling must have fallen asleep at this moment, Jiang Chen did not feel guilty for waking him up. Sure enough, Lin Ling's sleepy face appeared on the screen soon. Big pervert, why are you still not asleep so late? What do you want from me? Well, there's something. Jiang Chen explained Aisha's situation to Lin Ling. An auxiliary drug to hide the gene code? Well, although the ability of cold-bloodedness is rare, it should be available in the 6th block. Okay, I will talk to Sun Jiao tomorrow. Is that it? Lin Ling yawned. Well, go to bed early. Looking at the dazed look of Lin Ling in pajamas, Jiang Chen smiled and said, I went to bed a long time ago, but at this moment, the picture suddenly froze. Gradually, the center of the screen suddenly became a fine white snowflake. Jiang Chen was stunned, thinking that there was something wrong with the ebb or the chip, so he reached out and knocked on the ebb. There was no response at all. Just when Jiang Chen was about to restart the ebb, the screen suddenly went black. Then, a line of words suddenly appeared in the center of the pitch black screen. Hello then, a person with only an outline appeared. It smiled hollowly and waved to him at a uniform frequency. Chapter 262 Temporary Return. In the morning, Jiang Chen got up, lay in bed, hugged Aisha who curled up on his chest like a cat, and turned on the TV. Recently, the relevant departments uncovered a major case planned and implemented by foreign spies. 2 suspects were shot dead on the spot when they were arrested. According to the evidence collected at the scene and the intelligence already obtained, the prosecutors have arrested 11 people involved, including 7 ZTE high-tech researchers and 4 government workers. They will face charges of 7 crimes including espionage and treason. According to reliable information, the CIA may be involved in this operation. The suspect Zhang is hiding in the US Embassy in Guangzhou City and refuses to accept the trial of the law. At present, the prosecutors have submitted an application to the US Embassy in China, hoping that the US Embassy in Guangzhou City can cooperate with the investigation. Regarding the specific progress of the incident, let us give the time to the reporter, stationed in Guangzhou City Zhang Yaoji. Jiang Chen yawned and turned off the TV with some lack of interest. These troublesome matters will be left to professionals to deal with. For the general staff and the CIA, this matter is definitely not over. But for him, this incident is over. Even if this matter was caused by him. This old knife is really powerful. Zhang Yaoji should not have left any handles, but he can find evidence. Throwing the remote control on the bedside table, Jiang Chen gently fiddled with Aisha's small notes, thinking about it casually. 3 action teams and 1 sniper. All clues were brought to the end of the world by him. In this case, the general staff should have no reason to get any evidence that the CIA planned this operation. Killing 2 spies. Is there a battle that happened in a place he didn't know? Forget it. The result is no different anyway. Shaking his head, Jiang Chen decided not to worry about it anymore. Compared with these trivial matters, what made him more difficult to let go was the video he saw in the app yesterday. After the restart, app returned to normal. If it weren't for the fact that every communication was automatically written to the memory stick, Jiang Chen would almost think that the video was just his illusion. Hello. Are you saying hello to me? Jiang Chen stroked his chin and thought for a while, but in the end he didn't come to any conclusion. Forget it, I'll go back to the end of the world later and take the video to show Lin Ling. Jiang Chen muttered to himself and put the matter aside for the time being. After getting up, Jiang Chen called the front desk. After a while, the waiter pushed the dining cart to deliver breakfast to the door. After paying the tip, Jiang Chen put the tray with sandwiches and mocha coffee on the bedside table. Looking at Aisha, who was curled up in front of her chest and sipping like a kitten, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile and leaned over to kiss her smooth forehead. As if she felt the warmth coming from her forehead, her long eyelashes trembled slightly and the corners of her mouth unconsciously rose slightly. It seemed that she had dreamed of something good. She did sleep a little too late last night, and she really couldn't bear to wake her up when she was sleeping so sweetly, so Jiang Chen left a note on the table that only the 2 of them could understand, and then walked into the bedroom to start the journey. When he opened his eyes, he saw the end of the world. Without staying in the room for too long, Jiang Chen went straight to the gym on the 3rd floor. He gently pushed the door open, and Sun Jiao immediately turned her head when she noticed the noise behind her. When she saw it was Jiang Chen, a look of surprise flashed across her face. "You're back." Sun Jiao threw the pistol into the box and walked to his side with a smile. "Can't you react a little slower so that I can give you a surprise?" Jiang Chen said helplessly, habitually putting his arm around her waist. "Then come in again. I'll pretend I didn't see it." There was a cunning flash in her beautiful eyes. "Ahem, forget it. I have some important things to deal with when I come back this time." Seeing Jiang Chen talking about business, Sun Jiao put away the mischievous look on her face and waited carefully for Jiang Chen's next words. "How is the production of the mechanical exoskeleton going?" 2 months ago, Jiang Chen ordered Jiang Lin to complete the production of 50 sets of mechanical exoskeletons before January. I wonder how he is doing now. Exceeded the target. Sun Jiao smiled proudly when she heard Jiang Chen ask about this. The number of mechanical exoskeletons in stock is currently 110 sets. According to your instructions, they have not yet been equipped to the troops. 110 sets? Jiang Chen looked at Sun Jiao in surprise. Seeing the surprise on Jiang Chen's face, Sun Jiao smiled slightly and explained to Jiang Chen, "Have you forgotten that the 6th block is now our territory? According to the suggestion of Chunan, the acting marshal you appointed, and after referring to Jiang Lin's opinion, some parts of our military factory's equipment are now outsourced to small workshops in the 6th block. We set the standards, and they are responsible for the specialized production of parts and the improvement of production processes. In this way, not only can the production cost be reduced, but the production speed will also be greatly increased. Now, the mechanical exoskeleton production capacity of the fishbone base has reached 80 sets per month, which is a full doubling of the previous output." "Great." Jiang Chen was overjoyed, hugged Sun Jiao, and kissed her pretty face passionately. Hateful. Although she said she hated him, her body was very honest. After leaving Jiang Chen's arms, Sun Jiao rolled her eyes at him in reproach, brushed her slightly messy hair, and returned to her previous serious attitude. Realizing that he had lost his composure, Jiang Chen coughed lightly in embarrassment and returned to the main topic. "Leave 100 sets of mechanical exoskeletons. I have other uses for them. The rest should be equipped to the troops stationed at the entrance of Zufeng Highway first. I always feel that the mutants are not over yet." Speaking of mutants, Sun Jiao's face also showed a solemn look, and she said carefully, "I also hold the same opinion. It is really abnormal that the mutants have not taken any action so far. By March, their cold-resistant advantage will be gone. Logically speaking, the Church of Twilight should have no reason to give up the Eden project, and Sun Jiao is still in our hands." Speaking of her sister, Sun Jiao's mood was a little low. Seeing Sun Jiao's dejected look, Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel guilty. "Sorry. No, you don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. It's better to say that you can forgive her as an assassin because she owes you a favor." Sun Jiao kissed Jiang Chen lightly on the lips and looked into his eyes seriously. "Is this the logic of the wasteland?" Jiang Chen raped her in anger at that time, but he always felt a little guilty afterwards. After all, Sun Jiao is his sister-in-law. "Although I don't know if there is such an ethical concept in the wasteland, I will destroy the Twilight Church for you," Jiang Chen promised seriously. "Thank you." With a smile on her face, Sun Jiao thanked sincerely. Chapter 263 Denuclearization of the 6th block. Over the past month, the development of the apocalypse has been relatively stable. There are no traces of civil war in the streets and alleys of the 6th block, and the radiation index in the inner circle has returned to normal. In order to prevent similar incidents from happening again, Chunan commanded the militia of the 6th block to seal and confiscate the tactical nuclear bombs hidden in the 6th block. Most of these tactical nuclear bombs were picked up from the ruins. Even with advanced technology, these things that are usually never duds are not absolutely reliable in the ever-changing battlefield. Although the post-war World United Organization has recycled these dangerous goods to a certain extent, there are still many duds that have fallen into the hands of ordinary survivors. Later, with the launch of the colonial ship and the dissolution of the World United Organization, this recycling project was completely declared bankrupt. Those duds only need to be slightly processed. The nuclear components in the warhead are removed, and they can be made into simple nuclear bombs with special equipment. Even on the ruins of civilization destroyed by nuclear bombs, nuclear weapons are still the most efficient killing tools. It must be said that Chunan is really good at governing. The nuclear ban was issued in a swift and resolute manner. The military police, armed with detectors, conducted a carpet-style investigation of the entire 6th block. It took only 3 days to confiscate all the privately held tactical nuclear bombs in the 6th block. For those who voluntarily handed in nuclear weapons, the 6th block military government gave compensation according to the market price. For those who disobeyed, they were punished with permanent expulsion. There were voices of resistance, but after all, the holders of nuclear weapons were only a minority. Moreover, the military government, which had stabilized the situation, took a tough attitude at the first time and carried out the suppression to the end. These voices of resistance did not form a climate and died down. Between the two options of mutual destruction and compromise, almost no one chose the former. On the other hand, under the instruction of Jiang Chen, the Fishbone Base established the Aerospace Technology Department, with Jiang Lin as the minister, responsible for the research and development and improvement of spacecraft. This move can be regarded as the fulfillment of Jiang Chen's promise to Jiang Lin to invest in his aerospace dream. Of course, dreams cannot be separated from reality. At present, the main task of this Aerospace Technology Department is not to design the warp engine that will be completed at any time, but to design and produce long-range missiles that can carry nuclear components to deal with the threat of Liuding Town's shipborne electromagnetic gun. According to Sun Jiao, the Fishbone Base has set up 5 simple missile launchers in Qingpu and deployed 5 W-1 ballistic missiles equipped with nuclear warheads. The nuclear warheads were naturally forcibly confiscated, and the W-1 ballistic missile was designed by Jiang Lin from beginning to end. The power components of the missile use the thrusters of small civilian rockets, and the missile shell is coated with an anti-laser scattering layer. From a technical perspective, compared with missiles such as the Shian-G32 that symbolize the peak of pre-war military technology, the W-1 ballistic missile independently designed and produced by the Fishbone Base has a considerable gap in both anti-interception and hit rate, but it is enough to counter the threat of Liuding Town. After listening to Sun Jiao's report, Jiang Chen went to the community center in the base and found Wang Qing, the head of the logistics department. He took out 100 sets of mechanical exoskeletons and more than 400,000 7.62mm ammunition for the Ripper rifle, as well as hundreds of thermal grenades from the warehouse, and moved them to the warehouse in the backyard of the villa. These materials will be brought to the real world and should be put to use soon. In addition to these conventional war materials, Jiang Chen also ordered Wang Qing to place an order with the military factory in the 6th block to produce 20 individual anti-tank rocket launchers and 500 thermal grenades. With this batch of war materials, he is a mobile arsenal. Combined with the scale of Niger's mercenary base of 100 people, it is no exaggeration to say that Jiang Chen already has the strength to launch a small-scale modern war. After the preparations for the war were completed, Jiang Chen immediately went to Lin Ling's laboratory. He had many questions about the strange image. "Hey, big pervert, are you back?" Lin Ling opened the door and saw that it was Jiang Chen and habitually said, "Long silver white hair, red and black eyes, a strange style of dressing of white shirt and white coat. She has a cute face, but her unrestrained speech always destroys this beauty." Already used to Lin Ling's sharp tongue, Jiang Chen ignored her greetings and casually placed the mango pudding on the table. Seeing her favorite pudding, Lin Ling subconsciously slurped her saliva, and her eyes immediately bloomed with excitement. Seeing Lin Ling, who was satisfied with a few puddings, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. "Eat later, I have something to ask you." Lin Ling held the pudding box in her arms and rubbed it, wiping the saliva from the corners of her mouth, and reluctantly put the pudding aside. "Tell me, what's the matter? Did you see anything strange when we were on the video call yesterday?" "Strange things?" Lin Ling tilted her head and looked at Jiang Chen in confusion. "I remember you hung up halfway, and then I went to bed. Is that so?" Jiang Chen pressed the side of the app, and the memory chip popped out. "I didn't hang up at that time. How should I put it? It was as if the TV channel was switched, and an unrelated video was suddenly inserted into the screen. Hearing this, Linling was stunned, and took the chip from Jiang Chen. Impossible? This 4-dimensional transmitter is designed based on the kinship resonance effect of clean particles. Logically, this special wave across the 4-dimensional dimension can only be transmitted between two chips made from the same subcrystal. While muttering an unknown theory, Linling inserted the chip into the slot of the holographic computer. Light blue light particles floated up and instantly formed a 2-dimensional image. The video image category is 2-dimensional, the picture quality is 3D, and the size is only 52 KB. Has it been subjected to high pressure? Linling tapped the holographic screen several times with her fingers and replayed the image that Jiang Chen saw last night. The holographic screen began to shake, and after the snowflakes turned white, the strange figure appeared again. Hello. For some reason, Jiang Chen always felt an unnatural discomfort when looking at the person with only an outline. Suddenly, he realized where this feeling came from. Uncanny valley effect. Looking at the hand shaking at a constant speed, Jiang Chen muttered to himself. Due to the fear of death, people will instinctively dislike things that are extremely similar to humans, but are not humans. The uncanny valley effect. 100% of humans are really troublesome creatures. Linling's electronic eyes shrank slightly and began to analyze the details of this impact. However, as the analysis deepened, the expression on Linling's face became more and more solemn. Seeing Linling repeatedly replaying this meaningless video, Jiang Chen was about to ask what the meaning was, but Linling suddenly reached out and turned off the video. After a long sigh, Linling raised her hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead and looked at Jiang Chen with a rare serious expression. The analysis of the video is complete. Before I tell you the results of the analysis, can I ask a question? Ask. When did the history of your world start to go wrong? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264. Dialogue with the Past. When did the history of your world start to go wrong? This question is asked in a strange way. From Jiang Chen's perspective, the historical trend of this world is strange in all senses. China was able to reach a consensus with a group of Southeast Asian hooligans such as Vietnam and the Philippines, as well as the disobedient South Dynasty and the acrobatics-loving India, to establish the Pan-Asian Cooperation Organization, PAC, that covers 60% of the world's total population, and compete with NATO and the Soviet Union, CCCP. For Jiang Chen, a good young man of the new era who occasionally reads the news and pays attention to current affairs, it is almost unimaginable. Maybe the Soviet Union collapsed. Jiang Chen thought for a moment. I remember it was in 1991. In our world, the Soviet Union's lifespan was less than 70 years. Because the bipolar structure ended early, the Third World did not experience the running-in period of survival in the cracks. Jiang Chen is not a sociology expert, so he can only make such a guess. The Soviet Union collapsed. It's totally unimaginable. Linling pinched her chin and frowned. Speaking of which, have we gone off topic? Jiang Chen coughed and said softly. No. Linling shook her head. Do you know how subcrystals are formed? The biological crystals in the back of the heads of alien species and some zombies? Jiang Chen didn't know why she asked this common sense again. Yes, subcrystals are a kind of biological crystals. Linling nodded. According to the conclusion drawn by Dr. Crane's experiment in 2132, Crane particles exist in every conscious carbon-based life. But generally speaking, this energy usually tends to be stable, and the content is extremely low under normal circumstances. Hearing that every organism has Crane particles, Jiang Chen subconsciously reached out and touched the back of his head. Don't be nervous. Not every organism will have that kind of brain tumor. Unless an uncontrollable mutation occurs, causing the area in the organism that stores clean particles to become cancerous, it will be possible to condense subcrystals, and the energy in the steady state will also be stimulated to be unstable. Because under normal circumstances, organisms with subcrystals are more likely to survive in natural selection. So the aliens that come out of the nuclear bomb crater often carry subcrystals. Linling looked at Jiang Chen's actions and teased. According to anatomical experiments, under normal circumstances, the area that stores clean particles is close to the cerebral cortex. At this point, Linling stopped and took a deep breath. Suppose, if there is a person whose clean particle content in the back of his head is far higher than that of ordinary people. Although subcrystals have not yet condensed, the clean particle content is infinitely close to the threshold for condensing subcrystals. The probability of such a genetic mutation is very low, but in a population of billions, it is very likely to exist. Through some strong interaction, just like a magnet magnetizes iron, his brain can receive signals from other time axes. Then his whole person is like an old antenna pole. Although it does not have the ability to send signals, it can passively receive signals from other radio stations. Under normal circumstances, this signal can only come from the future. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's expression became solemn, but then he found something wrong. Antenna? That's not right. After all, the brain is not a decoder. If you just plug an antenna into your head, even if you receive electromagnetic waves, you can't translate the electromagnetic signals into video information, right? Linling shook her head. In theory, it is possible. The area storing clean particles is part of the brain. If the person who receives this signal happens to be in a sleeping state, this special wave acting on the clean particles will be translated into the form of a dream and seen by the receiver of the signal. By using strong interactions to stimulate special waves with high energy intensity, broadcasting the past four-dimensional dimension. This experiment has been done before, but due to the inability to locate the four-dimensional coordinates, it has always been just a meaningless broadcast. There is no point in transmitting the signal back billions of years later. Considering that the butterfly effect may have an uncontrollable impact on the present, the experiment was stopped. The more advanced the technology, the greater the possibility that humans will kill themselves. At this point, Linling looked at Jiang Chen helplessly. But now it seems that this worry is completely unnecessary. Jiang Chen, the ancient man, stood in front of her. The interfered past will not have any impact on the present, but it will evolve from the interfered time point to another historical trend that is parallel to the present. Time travel, except for your special case, that I cannot explain, without the help of wormholes. Even if the whole civilization exerts all its power, it is impossible to send even a grain of sand from the present to the past. Linling took out the memory chip from the card slot of the holographic computer. It is too expensive to send mass matter to another point on the time axis. But what if the matter being sent is massless? It is only a 52 kb signal, which is enough to be done with the pre-war technology level. The only trouble is how to locate it. As she said, Linling returned the memory chip to Jiang Chen's hand and looked at her seriously. If someone receives a signal from the future, what will he do? What will he do if he receives a signal from the future? After leaving Linling's room, Jiang Chen has been thinking about this question. But what will he do specifically depends on what information is conveyed in the signal of the future man, right? If it is the lottery code for tomorrow's lottery, then that person will undoubtedly go to buy a lottery ticket. However, people in the future will obviously not be so bored as to remember the password of a past lottery and spend such a huge price to send that information to the past. Change history? Jiang Chen muttered to himself as he returned to the bedroom and lay down on the bed. If the CCCP and PAC were strangled in their cradle from the beginning, could the outbreak of World War III in 2171 be prevented? But at present, the person who sent the signal to the past was obviously doing useless work. This world has not changed at all. What has changed is just another irrelevant parallel line. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen started the time travel. The scenery in his sight changed, and the sunlight outside the window became warmer in an instant. It was already noon, and Aisha had obviously gotten up at this time. Pushing open the bedroom door, Jiang Chen walked towards the living room. Seeing Jiang Chen coming over, Aisha, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room flipping through a fashion magazine, put down the magazine in her hand and stood up to greet him. "Someone came to see you just now." "Someone came to see me? Who?" Jiang Chen stretched and said. He called himself Mr. Chen and called our room at the hotel front desk. Mr. Chen. It seems that he is Robert's business partner in Los Angeles and has some status in Hong Kong. On the way to Hong Kong, this Mr. Chen helped him a lot. Jiang Chen still has some impression of this person. What about now? Where is he? I told him you were still sleeping. He asked me to tell you, when you wake up, that he is waiting for you at the tea table in the lobby on the first floor. Aisha said softly. Chapter 265 Mr. Chen. Jiang Chen put aside the question about the mysterious video for the time being. Whether or not the history of this world diverged from that of the wasteland due to external interference, this fact that had already happened had nothing to do with him. Rather, from his perspective, the history of the world on the wasteland side was even more bizarre. Jiang Chen left the room alone and took the elevator downstairs. It was almost noon, and at this time, most of the hotel guests were enjoying lunch at the Felix restaurant on the 28th floor. Before the afternoon tea at 3 o'clock, the lobby on the first floor was often deserted. As soon as he arrived at the lobby, he saw Mr. Chen sitting at the tea table in the lobby. Chen Wei, a well-known entrepreneur in Hong Kong, mainly engaged in the entertainment industry and real estate. He is the major shareholder of Nanfeng Properties and Nanfeng Entertainment, and his personal assets are close to 10 billion. He was dressed in a black suit and had a gentle face, but there was a hint of majesty that only a tyrant could have. Although he was middle-aged, his short black hair showed no signs of balding. At first glance, Mr. Chen looked like a serious businessman. But Jiang Chen knew that few people who did business with Roberts were serious people. Standing behind him was a bodyguard who was also wearing a suit and sunglasses. Seeing Jiang Chen coming, Mr. Chen stood up politely and made an invitation with a smile. I have heard of Mr. Jiang for a long time. I see you today, and you are indeed a handsome man. No, Mr. Chen, thank you for the compliment. Thank you very much for the cruise. Jiang Chen bowed and replied modestly. Haha, why are you being so polite about such a small matter? Please take a seat. After a simple greeting, Jiang Chen took a seat under Chen Wen's warm hospitality. I wonder what Mr. Chen wants to see me about. Sitting firmly on the chair, Jiang Chen looked at Mr. Chen with a smile and got straight to the point. Haha, Mr. Jiang is indeed a businessman. He speaks and acts so straightforwardly. Chen Wen leaned back in his chair and said with a smile, then I won't beat around the bush. I heard that Mr. Jiang's future technology had a little conflict with the local government in Wanghai City. When asking this question, Jiang Chen clearly felt a hint of probing. Future Technology is just an ordinary internet technology company. How could it have a conflict with the local government? Jiang Chen replied calmly. If this sentence spreads out, the impact will always be a bit bad. Haha, sometimes I don't think before I speak. I hope Mr. Jiang will forgive me. Realizing that his question was a bit abrupt, Chen Wei pretended to understand and apologized with a smile. It's okay. Jiang Chen said. It's like this. I heard from the grapevine that the headquarters of Future Technology Company is preparing to move. I wonder if Mr. Jiang has considered settling in Hong Kong? Chen Wei said. Settling in Hong Kong? Looking at Chen Wei, Jiang Chen couldn't help but look a little suspicious. Although he did consider setting up the headquarters of Futureman Technologies business in China in Hong Kong, he couldn't figure out why Chen Wei proposed this. As if he understood the doubts on Jiang Chen's face, Chen Wei smiled, waved to the bodyguard and secretary beside him, and took a document from him. It's like this, because I have some friendship with Su Changying, the director of the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau. This time I came to disturb you, mainly because of my old friend's request. As he said, Chen Wei handed the document in his hand to Jiang Chen. Picking up the document, Jiang Chen glanced at it roughly, and a look of interest appeared on his face. 1 year of tax exemption, 3.5 years of tax. Such generous conditions are simply many times better than the conditions offered by the local government of Wanghai City. According to the current profitability of Futureman Technology, the 1-year tax exemption policy alone can save Jiang Chen more than 4 billion yuan in taxes. In addition, considering the relocation of the company's headquarters, some employees will also be transferred accordingly, and the Hong Kong municipal government has also offered a more generous employee immigration policy for Futureman Technology. 100 places for Futureman Technology, to transfer their household registration from the mainland to Hong Kong are provided to facilitate the relocation of future man. Technology's employees. Seeing the interested look on Jiang Chen's face, Chen Wenyi also smiled. I wonder if Mr. Jiang is satisfied with the conditions offered by my old friend. Very satisfied, but I don't know if the Hong Kong government can be fair and just in its policies. Jiang Chen asked casually, flipping through the documents in his hand. Upon hearing this, Chen Wenyi was stunned for a moment, then laughed out loud. Mr. Jiang, you are completely overthinking. I dare not say anything else, but I can guarantee fairness and justice. There are not as many twists and turns in Hong Kong as in Wanghai. What about the Wang family and the Zhao family? Here, everything must be done according to the law. Fairness and justice? Law? Although there was no expression on his face, Jiang Chen was very disapproving in his heart. Everyone knows that the underworld in Hong Kong is famous in Southeast Asia and even the world. Let alone other things. Chen Wenyi himself is probably not a good person. How many honest businessmen who run film companies in Hong Kong have clean hands and feet? However, Jiang Chen was still very satisfied with the attitude of the Hong Kong government. Really? That's great. Jiang Chen grinned, put the document on the table, looked at Chen Wenyi and smiled. I'm very satisfied with this investment attraction plan. If the conditions in the plan can be implemented, I can now assert that the headquarters of Future Technologies business in China will be located in Hong Kong. Hearing this, Chen Wenyi's face also flashed with joy, and he smiled and bowed his hands to congratulate. Haha, then I would like to congratulate Mr. Jiang on his arrival in advance on behalf of my old friend. Jiang Chen just smiled and declined Chen Wenyi's congratulations. Speaking of which, if it is settled in Hong Kong, I wonder if Mr. Jiang has any plans for the new headquarters of Future Technology. Hearing this, combined with Chen Wenyi's identity, Jiang Chen finally understood his intention. Not yet. I wonder if Mr. Chen has any good suggestions? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Haha, then I won't beat around the bush. Seeing that Jiang Chen's expression clearly guessed his intention, Chen Wenyi did not hide it and took out another document from the bodyguard beside him. It's like this. We at Nanfeng Properties happen to have an office building that has been developed. It is located in Kowloon, close to the subway station, and has complete supporting facilities around it. I wonder if Mr. Jiang is interested? Chen Wenyi said with a smile. Taking the document from Chen Wenyi, Jiang Chen looked through the specific style of the building. In general, he was quite satisfied. Compared with the building in Wanghai City, the one built by Nanfeng Properties is much better in terms of appearance and internal supporting facilities. How much is the offer? 2 billion Hong Kong dollars, equivalent to about 1.65 billion yuan. Chen Wenyi said with a sharp look in his eyes. Jiang Chen thought for a while and then nodded. I think this price is reasonable, and I'm also satisfied with the building. As for the specific matters of the acquisition, leave it to the company's professionals to worry about. Seeing Jiang Chen nod, Chen Wenyi breathed a sigh of relief, and his expression was slightly grateful. Thank you very much. Chapter 266 Future People International. The Hong Kong property market is in a downturn. Although prices remain high, transaction volume is shrinking and recently hit a 17-month low. To make matters worse, Li Ka-shing, who pushed the Hong Kong property market to its peak, is gradually selling off his properties to cash in. This prophetic initiator has already smelled the danger signal. How could other real estate developers not notice it? Once interest rates return to normal, the Hong Kong property market will be under unimaginable pressure, and it is not ruled out that there will be a collapse like the one in 1997. The bubble economy caused by the crazy construction of buildings has caused the capital chain of every real estate company to be stretched tight, and Nanfeng Properties is no exception. The office building in Kowloon cost 1.2 billion Hong Kong dollars. Logically, it would be no problem to sell it for 3 billion. But for Chen Wenyi, who is in a hurry to use the money and relieve the financial pressure, he can't wait any longer. Admittedly, he is not a serious businessman, but with the improvement of the legal system and enforcement, basically most of his industries have been washed clean. Jiang Chen's purchase of the building undoubtedly gave him a sigh of relief. The deal was done, and Chen Wenyi was naturally very happy and enthusiastically expressed that he would treat him to a meal. In response, Jiang Chen did not refuse and went to Felix's restaurant on the 28th floor with him. At the dinner table, the two of them bragged familiarly and talked about their experiences in traveling around the country. Speaking of which, how is Roberts now? As they chatted, the two talked about Roberts. That's it, he has also transformed his industry now. In his words, he is playing with chicks in Hollywood. Didn't he tell you? Jiang Chen laughed. I sold it earlier than him, and I was clean 5 years ago. I just didn't expect that the madman who dared to sell everything would quit. Chen Wei said with some emotion. Madman? Haha, this title really suits that guy. More than 5 months ago, that guy was caught by us in Iraq and almost had his head chopped off. Iraq, he is really daring. Speaking of which, how did you two meet? Chen Wei asked with some curiosity. No matter from which angle, Jiang Chen looked like a serious businessman. It should be unreasonable for him to contact the middleman who smuggled and raped as frequently as eating and drinking. I met him in Iraq, and I saved his life. Jiang Chen shrugged, because he had nothing to hide. Chen Wei was stunned at first, then laughed twice, and raised his glass to Jiang Chen. Excuse me, I thought Mr. Jiang was a serious businessman, but I didn't expect Mr. Jiang to be so hidden. I toast you a glass. Being able to rescue people from IS must have a certain connection with those shady mercenary organizations in the world. Generally, those open security companies will not take on life-threatening jobs such as hostage rescue. Thinking of this, Chen Wei couldn't help but sigh in his heart that he still underestimated this guy. Of course, even now, he still underestimated Jiang Chen. He would never have thought that it was not some mercenary who rescued the people, but Jiang Chen himself. I'm too much. Jiang Chen modestly clinked glasses with him. Did he quit because of the IS incident? That's not the case. It was mainly because he was targeted by the FBI. He was unlucky. He was caught by the IS because of a trap set by the FBI. FBI? That's right. If the government is targeting you, you really have to quit. Chen Wei sighed. Is Mr. Chen's industrial transformation also because he was targeted? Jiang Chen smiled. Yes, but the one who targeted me was not the FBI, but the general staff in the mainland. Chen Wei grinned. General staff? Jiang Chen's expression was a little strange. Can the general staff come here to manage? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. As long as it's not too excessive, but at that time my hands had already reached Guangzhou. After saying this, Chen Wei paused and looked at Jiang Chen. Speaking of which, you had some unpleasantness with the Wang family in Wanghai City? That's not wrong. Jiang Chen shrugged and said. Hearing this, Chen Wei nodded. It doesn't matter if you offend the Wang family, their power is mainly in Wanghai City. But don't offend anyone above them, unless you completely abandon your industry in China. At the end, Chen Wei's tone was inexplicably melancholy. It was unknown what he had experienced personally, or what his friends around him who were as dishonest as him had experienced. Jiang Chen just nodded his head, and did not make any comment on this advice. The first 2 days of leisure time have ended. Even Jiang Chen, who has never been in charge of anything, has been busy with the company's affairs. Although with the help of Sun Jiao, his workload has been reduced a lot, but there are still many things that he must do personally. First of all, FutureMan International was registered in New Zealand and is 100% controlled by Jiang Chen. There is an advantage of registering an offshore company in New Zealand. That is, as long as the profit is not generated locally, the annual review fee can be paid. It can be legally zero declaration, no audit is required, and the subsequent operation is also very simple. It's just that the registration fee is slightly higher than that of registering a company in Hong Kong, but the annual review fee in the future is similar to that in Hong Kong. The bank that opens an account will have a search fee, but these are only charged once. As the parent company, FutureMan International quickly completed the control of 99% of FutureMan Technology's shares. At this point, FutureMan Technology has become a subsidiary of FutureMan International, and CEO Sun Jiao is responsible for operation. At the same time, at Sun Jiao's suggestion, FutureMan Technology split its business. The global business is divided into several major blocks, namely the Chinese region, Southeast Asia, Russia, the European Union, the Arab region, North America, South America, etc. Branches have been set up in each business area to take charge of the business of each region. Of course, the workload of this business split is huge, and for a time, the talent reserve of future technology was somewhat short. In this regard, Jiang Chen's solution is also very simple, that is, to spend money. High salary, high welfare, hiring headhunting companies to dig people all over the world, and using money to create a talent team. Compared with the low cost and high profit of future technology, this level of effort is simply a drop in the bucket. For those technical talents, working in future technology is itself a very attractive thing, and the discovery of talents is completed without much resistance. After completing these matters, the headquarters of Future Technologies China business moved to Hong Kong under the command of Sun Jiao. So far, Future Technology has created no less than 2 billion in taxes every year, and has completely said goodbye to the local government of Guangzhou City. Although Wang Dehe personally called Jiang Chen and expressed his apology and intention to retain him in a tactful and sincere manner, Jiang Chen's attitude remained unchanged. What's the saying? You only know the value of something when you lose it. From the moment the Wang family regarded future man technology, their partner, as fat meat, he should have considered that there would be such a day. Chapter 267 Angry Wang Dehe. Hundreds of kilometers away in Guangzhou City, Wang Dehe was sitting behind his desk with a grim face. On his desk were two English newspapers. One was the New York Times of the United States, and the other was the Times of the United Kingdom. At this moment, the two newspapers were opening the economic pages. Although they were two completely different newspapers, the headlines of the economic pages printed almost the same content. Future Man International was established, and there may be other hidden reasons for withdrawing from Guangzhou City. Although Jiang Chen had been deliberately avoiding those reporters holding cameras and swarming like flies during his time in Hong Kong. But there is no impenetrable wall in this world after all, and major media have dug out some clues through various channels. Major media have found some inside stories behind the relocation of Future Man Technologies headquarters through various channels. Linhua Group attempted to use its relationship in the local government to suppress its business in China as a bargaining chip and demanded forced investment in Future Man Technology. Future Man Technology was protected by the central government for some reason, but Jiang Chen, who had already fallen out with the Wang family, chose to leave because of his distrust of the local government of Guangzhou City. Domestic media were fine. Due to the impact and various factors, they were naturally silenced. Although the discipline that relatives of high-ranking officials cannot engage in business is limited to children and spouses, it would still have a very bad impact if it were exposed. Domestic media are easy to talk to, but Wang Dehe has no way to deal with foreign media. Fortunately, he can't hear those flies buzzing in China anyway. Given that criticizing a certain aspect of a certain country has almost become the political correctness of Western media, the investment value of Future Man Technology has always been coveted by Wall Street capital, and major overseas media have conducted in-depth excavation on this incident, especially the New York Times. The irony between the lines is particularly obvious, and the lines of glaring English almost made Wang Dehe have a heart attack. Standing in front of his desk is Wang Linhua, and the expression on the face of this old fox is slightly embarrassed at the moment. More than a month ago, Wang Linhua patted his chest and promised his brother Wang Dehe that, as long as he could give Jiang Chen a hard time on the policy side, this small shrimp with no roots and no foundation would definitely recognize the situation and obediently hand over the shares of Future Technology in his hands, so that the Wang family's industry could be successfully withdrawn from real estate. But now, this promise seems to have fallen through. How many times have I told you not to push people too much? Look at you now. People are gone, and you have benefited? Wang Dehe's lips trembled with anger, tapping the newspaper on the table with his fingers. Seeing his brother so angry, Wang Linhua's face was also a little embarrassed. Ahem, Dehe, it's not that I'm pushing too hard, it's that kid who's a little too ignorant. He wants to do business without even understanding the principle of sharing the benefits equally. To be honest, with a market value of 10 billion, it's not unfair to him to exchange 5 billion for 50% of the shares. How many internet companies have difficulty in financing and are trying their best to attract venture capital bullshit? Perhaps because he has been annoyed by the central government on this matter recently, Wang Dehe rarely lost his usual demeanor of keeping a low profile and slammed the table and scolded his own brother. Market value of 10 billion. Future Technologies' annual profit is more than 10 billion. According to a price-earnings ratio of 20 times, you can calculate how much the market value should be. Do you know what the old guy from the Liu family said to me? Now I'm going to tell you this. You are too greedy, and you will be finished sooner or later. These words were very unpleasant to hear, and Wang Dehe was very emotional when he said them, so that his chest was heaving violently. Isn't this also for the benefit of the Wang family's industry? Moreover, the market value of this technology company cannot be calculated in this way. FutureMan Technologies' current profits are indeed high, but that is only because they have formed a monopoly in technology in a short period of time. With the current rate of technological updates, it will be almost impossible for them to maintain their current profitability when similar artificial intelligence operating systems or mobile phone speed-up software appear. Wang Linhua defended his behavior. Wang Linhua's point of view is not without reason. The reason why people are willing to spend 10 yuan a month to upgrade VIP-1 is nothing more than the performance improvement and power saving functions. If a free alternative appears, even if the function is slightly inferior to FutureMan 1.0, I believe many people will choose to use the free app. With the current rate of internet technology updates, this is entirely possible in his opinion. However, what he, an outsider, does not know is that major internet companies at home and abroad have lost countless brain cells for the encryption technology of FutureMan 1.0. However, no matter how hard their technicians racked their brains, they could not crack even one technology in FutureMan 1.0. It is precisely for this reason that various capitals are so interested in FutureMan technology. Wang Dehe was obviously not satisfied with Wang Linhua's explanation, but he had already yelled, and his anger had subsided a little. And considering that Wang Linhua could not be blamed entirely for this matter, after all, it was still him who nodded in the end, Wang Dehe took a deep breath and put the matter aside for the time being. Seeing that Wang Dehe's expression eased, Wang Linhua was also relieved. Reaching out and holding the teacup from the table, Wang Dehe moistened his throat and changed the subject and said, "Let's not talk about this. You mentioned to me some time ago the industrial transformation of Linhua Group. How are you doing? Since the unpleasantness has already happened, there is no point in getting angry about it." Compared with the future technology, Wang Dehe is more concerned about the Wang family's industry. As a member of the Wanghe City Party Committee, he naturally knows the dilemma faced by Linhua Group. It can even be said that half of the reason why Linhua Group can still get a bank loan under such circumstances is because of Wang Dehe's face. When Wang Dehe asked about Linhua Group, a proud look flashed across Wang Linhua's face. Haha, I was just about to announce the good news. Recently, we received an order with a total project value of up to $10 billion US. $10 billion US? Even Wang Dehe, who had seen a lot of the world, couldn't help but express shock. That's right, and it's an order from overseas. With a happy look on his face, Wang Linhua said with a smile, his mouth spitting, "This deal has been finalized, and the direct profit is expected to be more than $5 billion US. The 110 square kilometers of land used for discount payment and the 70 square kilometers of land on the secondary island. Considering the development potential of the Panu Islands, these lands will be worth at least doubled in 5 years. It is no exaggeration to say that, if this deal is completed, the market value of Linhua Group will exceed 100 billion yuan. Hearing this, Wang Dehe nodded with relief. A blessing in disguise. Although Wanghe City lost future technology with a market value of 10 billion, it became Linhua Group with a market value of 100 billion. Expanding overseas markets can also be regarded as a solution to the predicament faced by the Wang family's industry. Thinking of this, Wang Dehe was in a much happier mood. But what he didn't know was whether he could still smile as cheerfully as he did now in a few months. Chapter 268 Trip to New Zealand. The beach, the waves, the warm sunshine, and the green palm trees. Of course, the swimsuit is more important. Jiang Chen leaned on the lounge chair, wearing sunglasses on his nose, looking at the beautiful shadows on the beach, and a smile rose from his lips. The salty sea breeze blew past, and he felt that all the fatigue in his body was blown away. Just as he was leisurely looking at the distant skyline, he suddenly felt a cold touch on his cheek. He turned his head and saw a pair of bright eyes looking at him with a smile. I don't know when Liu Yao had stood beside him, leaning over and playfully shaking the iced orange juice in her hand, looking at the beauty again. Liu Yao gently handed the iced orange juice she bought to Jiang Chen's hand and pouted like a little woman. I didn't look at it just now, but I'm looking at it now. Jiang Chen smiled and said to Liu Yao, a beige swimsuit with slightly curled lace. The white and delicate skin was transparent with water droplets, crystal clear in the sun. With her cheeks slightly red and her lips slightly curled, Liu Yao said happily, that's more like it. Even if she knew it was just sweet talk, which woman would really hate sweet talk? Putting her orange juice on the beach table, Liu Yao gently lifted the hair that was blown by the sea breeze on her forehead and lay down on the sun lounge next to Jiang Chen with her slender legs. The way she showed off her figure intentionally or unintentionally made Jiang Chen beside her laugh a little. But to be honest, this is exactly what Jiang Chen likes about her. Being jealous but not entangled will not only not make people feel bored, but will satisfy men's vanity. There are many smart women nowadays, but Jiang Chen has only seen such a smart woman who is not self-righteous for so long. Putting the orange juice with sorbet to his lips, Jiang Chen bit the straw and took a sip slowly. The cool touch entered his throat, and the scorching heat of the hot summer was instantly dissipated. As for why it was summer, the reason is very simple, because this is New Zealand in the southern hemisphere. The winter in New Zealand is from June to August every year, and now it is January, which is the hottest time in New Zealand. The reason for appearing here is, on the one hand, because of the registration of offshore companies, and on the other hand, to deal with the Panu Islands. Since Xiaoyu has already arrived in Hong Kong, the people of the general staff will naturally no longer be responsible for her safety, so Jiang Chen sent Aisha to her side as a bodyguard. Although there should be no one watching him now, it is always right to be careful. Aisha can't be with him, and it is really lonely to go abroad alone. At this moment, Jiang Chen suddenly remembered that he seemed to owe Liu Yao a promise to travel to the Panu Islands. As for why he brought Liu Yao, it was to fulfill his promise to take her out to play. Speaking of which, how is your movie going? Jiang Chen asked casually while enjoying the cold and sweet orange juice and admiring the increasingly beautiful figure. It's okay. We will probably finish shooting in March this year. Then we will do post-production, and then we will send both films to the review. If nothing goes wrong, you will be able to see me in the cinema in August this year. Liu Yao turned her head and said with a playful smile. Just like in that year in which she had starred before, in this Ma Dong Mui Troubles, she played the role of a school beauty and the second female lead. The only difference is that, because of Jiang Chen, the big investor, the director forced the screenwriter to change the script, and without affecting the plot, she, the second female lead who was originally just a supporting role, was given a lot of roles. Although she didn't say anything, Liu Yao was still very grateful for what Jiang Chen had done for her. This could be clearly felt from the intense and passionate reunion with Jiang Chen in the hotel after she got off the plane last night. It's also a very exciting thing to think about having a star as a lover. Really? Didn't you tell me about it last night? Looking at Liu Yao's playful look, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. Last night, while having sex in the hotel, Liu Yao perfectly substituted into the role of the school beauty she played. While righteously resisting Jiang Chen's invasion, she fascinatedly whispered the lines in the play in Jiang Chen's ear. In short, the sense of conquest brought by watching the pure school beauty enjoying herself under him made Jiang Chen so happy that he couldn't stop. Hearing Jiang Chen's joke, Liu Yao's cheeks flushed slightly, and she rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen in a charming way. After all, it's your investment in the movie. Don't you care about the box office? Hearing this, Jiang Chen laughed, put the orange juice on the beach table, and leaned back in the chair comfortably. It's only 100 million. I pay more than 100 million in taxes every month. For an investment of 100 million, even if the box office is 1 billion, 5% of the film's special fund and 3.3% of the tax will be paid. The theater chain will take 5% of the remaining part, and then the investor and the theater will split it in half, so Jiang Chen will only get about 300 to 400 million. However, it is rare for a domestic film to reach 1 billion. Compared with the profits of future man technology, this profit is not enough. Jiang Chen just treated investing in movies as fun. Even though he already knew how much Jiang Chen was worth, Liu Yao was still a little shocked and couldn't help sticking out her tongue. What do you think the box office will be? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Probably, at least 200 million, right? After all, Chen Xian plays the heroine, and she has quite a lot of fans. Liu Yao put her index finger on her lower lip and thought for a moment, then gave a conservative answer. Compared to the 100 million investment, a box office return of 200 million is a passing grade. Although Liu Yao was very attentive when filming the movie, and she did suffer a lot in order to realize her dream of becoming famous, the market does not believe in sweat and tears. Are you so unconfident? Jiang Chen smiled. What? 200 million box office is already amazing. Okay. Liu Yao pouted. I'm not talking about the box office. Jiang Chen waved his hand and continued with a smile. I mean, don't you have the confidence to overshadow the heroine? Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Liu Yao's cheeks flushed slightly. She reached out to pick up the orange juice on the table, took a sip with her red lips, and muttered while biting the straw. Well, it's a bit difficult. After all, the fan effect is still very strong in movies. Although Jiang Chen is face blind and doesn't know who is acting in a movie without looking at the credits, he has to admit that the fan effect is still very influential in youth comedy like this. That's just one of the factors. Promotion can also achieve the same effect. Jiang Chen waved his finger. With the number of users of future technology, she can become popular with just a little promotion. As long as there are channels, fame is not a problem at all. Hearing this, Liu Yao's eyes lit up instantly. Turning over and lying on the sun lounger, with her arm supporting her chin, Liu Yao looked at Jiang Chen pitifully. The deep ravines and seductive curves. Even though Jiang Chen had just deeply explored them last night, he still couldn't help but feel a heat in his lower abdomen. Of course, after all, it's a movie I invested in. Jiang Chen subtly shifted his gaze and looked to the side and said. At this moment, he was also wearing a swimsuit. If Shi Zheng was here, it would be embarrassing. Jiang Chen's reaction obviously didn't escape Liu Yao's eyes. The little devil raised her mouth proudly and continued to lie on the beach chair, unbuttoning her back in a seductive manner, and said in a tender voice, "Honey, I want to sunbathe. Please help me apply sunscreen." This little devil. Jiang Chen laughed and cursed in his heart, and then he stood up and walked over honestly. Chapter 269 Meeting with the Opposition. Zhangjiang City, Shangyuan Apartment Building 5, 12th floor. This is Xia Xiao's new home. Because the headquarters of Futureman Technology moved to Zhangjiang, she, the CEO, naturally followed after handling the company's relocation. For her, who is a renter, moving is a very easy thing. It is now 8 o'clock in the evening. As usual, Xia Xiao sat on the sofa watching TV, but her expression was a little uncomfortable. Normally, she, a single woman, doesn't like to wear a lot of clothes when she stays at home. However, at this moment, she was wearing a shirt and jeans that were in the way. If you want to ask why, it is naturally because there is more than one person in her home now. For Xia Xiao's safety, Jiang Chen sent Aisha to her side as a bodyguard. Xia Xiao's feelings towards Aisha are very complicated. That night, Aisha suddenly kissed Jiang Chen, and she felt her mind go blank. Angry? It's hard to say, because he is not her boyfriend, and she has no reason to be angry. Panic? Maybe a little. Jealous? Jealous? Maybe both. She knew he was excellent, and excellent men never lack sweeters. It was just that she was slow to show affection, and kept avoiding him, leaving her affection to tomorrow. However, she could not hate Aisha, her rival in love. After all, she saved her life, and was injured because of her. It was precisely because of the above factors that she felt very complicated when facing this cohabitant. But Aisha's expression was very natural. Because the air conditioning and heating were sufficient, she was wearing a thin white shirt at the moment, shaking a pair of well-shaped legs, and jogging on the treadmill. Speaking of which, for my existence, doesn't she mind at all? The TV screen gradually blurred, and Xia Xiao began to think wildly. To her, I should also be her rival in love. If she hadn't come to save me at that time, or deliberately stayed a few minutes late. Still keeping an expressionless face, Xia Xiao shivered unnaturally. Are you cold? Aisha looked over. No, no. Startled by the sudden conversation, Xia Xiao responded hastily. Aisha nodded and looked away. There was no more conversation between the two. Perhaps, this is what it feels like when two taciturn people live together. Aisha only talks a little more when she is alone with Jiang Chen, and Xia Xiao only communicates when she is working. I don't know what's going on with Jiang Chen. Staring at the TV screen with empty eyes, Xia Xiao muttered in her heart. With the company of beautiful women, Jiang Chen has been very comfortable these 2 days. Although Liu Yao is not suitable to be married home, she is impeccable as a lover. Of course, although he had a lot of fun, he didn't forget the business. While traveling in New Zealand with Liu Yao, he was still waiting for someone. If nothing unexpected happens, that person should have arrived in New Zealand and will contact him soon. After returning to the hotel from the beach, Jiang Chen, who had been teased by Liu Yao for the whole day, couldn't wait to slam the door shut, and Liu Yao was equally impatient and came up to him, offering a passionate kiss. From 9 PM to the early morning, Jiang Chen finally let go of Liu Yao millimeters, who was begging for mercy, and then hugged her and fell asleep. The next morning, Jiang Chen woke up from his sleep. Glancing at Liu Yao, who was sleeping beside him, he didn't wake her up immediately, but got out of bed quietly. After all, she was just an ordinary person, and she was definitely not comparable to Jiang Chen, a superman who had been injected with genetic drugs. After a simple wash, Jiang Chen took out his mobile phone and checked his email out of habit. When he saw the unread email in the inbox, a smile appeared on his face. Finally here. Old John's Coffee House on the corner of Auckland City. The old wooden decoration makes this place look quite historic, but the historic feeling obviously cannot bring good business. Compared with the Starbucks on the street, this place can be described as deserted. But it is precisely because of this quietness that Jiang Chen chose this place for the meeting. The waiter at the front desk should be an international student studying at a nearby university. She only looks above average, but her voice is very sweet. She was not too surprised to see Jiang Chen, her compatriot. There are many Chinese in Auckland, including immigrants and tourists. After ordering 2 cups of mocha from the Chinese girl who was working, Jiang Chen walked to the deepest part of the coffee shop and sat down, then played with his mobile phone to kill time. After a while, a man in a t-shirt sat in front of him. Sorry, I kept you waiting for a long time. The man sitting opposite Jiang Chen said in an apologetic tone. It's okay, it's not easy for you guys. Putting away his mobile phone, Jiang Chen looked up at the man in front of him and looked him up and down. Overseas Chinese? Well, Zhang Yaping, I'm meeting you on behalf of the Citizens Liberal Party of the Panu Islands. Zhang Yaping nodded and stretched out his right hand. The indigenous people of the Panu Islands only account for a small part of the population. The rest of the population is basically composed of European immigrants who came first and Asian immigrants who came later, and there are naturally many overseas Chinese. Considering Jiang Chen's identity, the Liberal Party decided after the meeting that it would be better to send Zhang Yaping, a Chinese in the organization, to contact Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen, although you should know my name. Jiang Chen shook hands and smiled. The Civil Liberties Party is currently the largest opposition party in the Panu Islands. However, although it is the largest opposition party, their situation is actually not much better. One of the main reasons for the poor situation is that they have no money. The Panu Islands are very poor, there is no oil nearby, and they are far away from hotspots. The economy is relatively closed, the infrastructure is backward, and the development cost is too high. This series of reasons has caused this little guy, who obviously has a vote in the United Nations, to be put into the cold palace of the international community. No one is interested in it at all. Even though the Liberal Party is more pro-Western than the Syrian opposition in ideology, the United States obviously has not shown enough interest in this poor little guy. Only when it is in line with the national interests of the United States will they put on a righteous face to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. This can be seen from its double standards in Syria and Ukraine. Nodding, Zhang Yaping looked at Jiang Chen seriously. I heard that Mr. Jiang sympathizes with our business, right? Yes, I think any form of dictatorship is abominable. Whether it is presidential dictatorship or corporate dictatorship, or a combination of the two. Jiang Chen said righteously. He was the last person to say this, as he was a big dictator in the 6th block. Zhang Yaping was naturally overjoyed to hear Jiang Chen's statement. If they had the support of such an entrepreneur, their business would undoubtedly be much easier to succeed. Then, are you willing to support our business, Mr. Jiang? Support. Jiang Chen took a sip of the coffee with interest. Of course, this is not free. After our business succeeds, we will provide you with enough benefits. Zhang Yaping added hurriedly. Chapter 270 Armed Resistance. As the saying goes, there is no early rise without benefits. Zhang Yaping also knew that, if there were not enough benefits, even if Jiang Chen agreed with their cause, he would probably only give verbal support, and would not provide them with financial assistance. Unlike the idealists in the organization, Zhang Yaping firmly believed that there was no free lunch in the world. Only by promising him enough benefits could he tie this entrepreneur to their chariot. However, I don't know what expression he would have on his face if he found out that Johnny International was a puppet funded by Jiang Chen and planned and supported by Roberts. Sufficient benefits? For example, Jiang Chen put down his coffee with interest, waiting for Zhang Yaping's next words. I heard that Mr. Jiang owns a warehouse with an area of 7,000 square meters and a foreign trade company in the Panu Islands, right? After taking a deep breath, Zhang Yaping crossed his fingers on the table and spoke calmly. Yes, it's not a secret. Jiang Chen smiled. As early as, after he acquired the Xinglang food processing factory, he instructed Zheng Hangju to obtain import and export trade qualifications as soon as possible. Then Jiang Chen set up a shell company with only 5 employees in the Panu Islands and purchased a 7,000 square meter warehouse for stockpiling goods. By transferring goods from one hand to the other, he ordered large quantities of canned food produced by Xinglang Food Processing Factory. At the same time, he placed orders with farms in Australia and New Zealand to buy agricultural products and dairy products at low prices. Through the method of introducing new products, part of these goods were sold locally, and part were stored waiting for Jiang Chen to pick up and transport them to the end of the world. In the Panu Islands, Jiang Chen probably has assets worth $10 million. Since Mr. Jiang invested in the Panu Islands, he must be optimistic about the prospects of the Panu Islands. Am I right? Zhang Yaping said step by step. Yes, maybe you can get to the point earlier, Jiang Chen said, leaning back in his chair. Looking back at the coffee shop, Zhang Yaping saw that in addition to the two of them, there was only the waiter lying on the front desk playing with his mobile phone. He lowered his voice and spoke mysteriously. We need about $1 million in aid, and this money will be repaid to you in the form of land after our political demands are realized. How much land is it exactly? Jiang Chen smiled. 1 square kilometer of land, located on the main island of Koro. Zhang Yaping said with pain. 1 square kilometer of land sold for only $1 million, equivalent to $1 per square meter. This can no longer be described as a bargain price. It is almost like ceding land and paying compensation. However, Jiang Chen was still not very satisfied with this proposal. I'm sorry, although I sympathize with the plight of the Panu people, I'm not interested in your proposal. Jiang Chen shook his head and said, why? Only $1 for 1 square meter. Is this price? Zhang Yaping stood up with his eyes wide open. Jiang Chen raised his hand and quietly pointed in the direction of the front desk. The front desk clerk had stopped playing with his mobile phone and looked over here curiously. Realizing that he was excited, Zhang Yaping immediately closed his mouth, took a deep breath, and sat back in his seat. Although this is New Zealand, not Panu, it is better to keep a low profile on such sensitive political activities. Seeing Zhang Yaping calm down, Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction. Although this Liberal Party is probably just an organization established by a few college students who are passionate about the welfare of the people, it can only be said to be amateur in terms of scale and organization, but it is still worth investing in. It doesn't matter if you are young. Sun Yat-sen was also young back then. Didn't he also achieve a career, and then it was taken advantage of by Yuan Shikai? I don't know if Mr. Jiang is dissatisfied with anything else. We can discuss it. Zhang Yaping said sincerely. The waitress not far away saw that there was nothing exciting to watch, so she lay on the table and played with her mobile phone out of boredom. First of all, my total investment in the Panu Islands is only $1 million, and I'm only prepared to invest this $1 million. Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair and smiled. If Johnny International completes the development of the Panu Islands, then the land prices in the Panu Islands will undoubtedly skyrocket, and the land in my hands will also appreciate. This $1 million investment can bring me a 10-fold or even a 100-fold return. So I don't care about the profit and loss of the industry I operate. I don't know if you have noticed that my industries in the Panu Islands are all in a loss-making state. The per capita income of the Panu Islands is already very low, and the purchasing power is naturally not very strong. Although it has rich tourism resources, it would be a bottomless pit to develop all these resources. That American is a scumbag. He is a vampire riding on the necks of the Panu people. Zhang Yaping cursed in a low voice. That's right. Regardless of whether he is a scum or not, he does have money, and he is spending it in the Panu Islands. Jiang Chen looked at Zhang Yaping with a smile, paused and then said, I wonder if you have ever thought about a problem. What problem? If Johnny International had not invested money and spent tens of billions of dollars to rebuild the infrastructure and develop tourism resources, do you think that the 7,000 square meters of land in my hand still have room for appreciation? Jiang Chen said lightly. Zhang Yaping was stunned, and his face gradually became ugly. If Jiang Chen was waiting for the appreciation of the land in his hands, there would be no reason to invest money to help them drive away the American. From the beginning, Jiang Chen only said that he sympathized with their cause, but never expressed his willingness to help. There is a gap between the present and the ideal. Jiang Chen is just an outsider and has no reason to pay for the suffering of the Panu people. Then we seem to have nothing to talk about. Zhang Yaping said in a difficult tone, with a very bitter smile on his face. It seems that his trip to New Zealand was a wasted trip. However, just when he was disappointed with the uncertain future, Jiang Chen lit a bright light of hope in front of him. On the contrary, Jiang Chen shook his head and smiled. I think we have a lot to talk about. Zhang Yaping's eyes widened, looking at Jiang Chen in disbelief. But didn't you say? Jiang Chen picked up the cooled coffee, took a sip, and said casually, I just said that your plan is not enough to attract me, but I never denied the possibility of cooperation between us. For example, you can tell me, if you get this $1 million investment, what will you do with it? Hearing Jiang Chen asking about the specific plan of the Liberal Party, Zhang Yaping realized that there might be a chance for this matter, so he immediately straightened his chest and said confidently, we will use this $1 million to develop downline members in the Panu army, and at the same time, organize citizens who have been treated unfairly, and farmers who have been forcibly deprived of farmland and plantations. We will launch strikes, we will organize marches, force the Panu authorities to compromise with us, punish corrupt officials, and drive away the lawless Johnny International. At the end, Zhang Yaping stopped a little embarrassed. Driving away Johnny International did not seem to be in Jiang Chen's interest. Driving away Johnny International? Then what? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Continue to live a hard life. Wait for new investors? Zhang Yaping rolled his eyes and promised, we can transfer Johnny International's interests in the Panu Islands to you. Hearing this naive answer, Jiang Chen laughed twice and shook his head. Who do you think you are? The ruling party? $1 million? I'm afraid Johnny International has given the president more than that in bribes. Do you plan to use it to corrupt the army? Don't dream. Your promise is just a blank check and can't be cashed at all. Jiang Chen said bluntly. Zhang Yaping held his breath. He lowered his head, pondered for a moment, and slowly spoke. Then what do you think? What kind of cooperation can satisfy you? Hearing this, Jiang Chen smiled on his face. He was waiting for this sentence. Parade? Strikes? Those things can't solve any problems. Only the government born out of elections will be in awe of public opinion. I dare to assert that, if your Liberal Party still holds on to the naive idea of solving problems through political means, what awaits you is only ruthless suppression. Our president was indeed elected, Zhang Yaping said with a fluke, but he has been corrupted. Jiang Chen stared at his eyes and said in a bewitching tone, he is no longer the president you elected. If he, that fool named Edward, runs for election now, will you still vote for him? Or do you think he will be willing to give up his interests and run for election honestly? Presidential republic? Haha, face the reality. You are now presidential dictatorship. Votes, protests, these can't save you. The only thing that can really save you is bullets. Jiang Chen's words were like heavy hammers, hitting Zhang Yaping's heart hard, shattering his last fantasy about the PANU authorities. Before joining the Liberal Party, he was a top student who graduated from the University of Auckland in New Zealand and was considered one of the few intellectuals in the PANU Islands. When he saw the PANU authorities compromise with foreign capital and oppress his compatriots together, he was angry. With a passion, several young people with different academic qualifications, but like-minded gathered together and jointly established the PANU Citizens Liberal Party. It aims to safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of citizens and eradicate the current situation of collusion between the PANU authorities and overseas capital. Although the road to expressing political demands is difficult, many PANU people stand on their side. It is precisely because of this that he sees hope for a peaceful solution to the problem. However, Jiang Chen told him that this road was not feasible from the beginning. Armed resistance? Zhang Yaping murmured to himself, and a different kind of fire had gradually ignited in his eyes. Yes, the only way to change the status quo is armed resistance. From the opposition to the anti-government army, Jiang Chen continued to spread dangerous ideas to this young man. But this violates the constitution. It was your president who violated the constitution first. Don't tell me that taking bribes and selling things is within the framework of the PANU constitution. But civil war will kill people. Zhang Yaping swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, there is no revolution without bloodshed, and there is no peace that can be exchanged without sacrifice. Jiang Chen looked straight into his eyes and said firmly, but there are not so many buts. Jiang Chen raised his hand to interrupt him. You have only one choice, buy freedom with blood, or bleed dry in compromise. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271, The Rich in the Slums. It is impossible to say that he has no sense of guilt. The American named Johnny, who was doing evil in the PANU Islands, was supported by Jiang Chen at a cost of about $200 million. But Jiang Chen will not regret it. The secrets in his hands doomed him to be unable to cooperate with any country or organization. If he wants to obtain unfettered development space, controlling a small country as a base is the only option. As for those who may pay their lives for this, Jiang Chen can only regretfully express that he will treat their descendants as well as possible. I believe that under his rule, the PANU Islands will be much richer than it is now. In order to obtain the PANU Islands as a base, Jiang Chen can be said to have spent a lot of money. After all, PANU is a country with a seat in the United Nations. It is not a country that can be occupied by simply sending 100 well-equipped infantry to land and shoot the armed forces on the island. If Jiang Chen really occupied the PANU Islands in such a simple and crude way, I'm afraid that it will not take many days for the peacekeeping forces to land in the PANU Islands and then search for him, the criminal who committed the crime of ****, without any dispute. The 21st century is not the Victorian era, and the issue of sovereignty is no joke. A regime established by illegally occupying a country's territory is not called a country. It is called a pirate gang or a terrorist. Only when the regime change is achieved within the framework of international law can the regime be considered legitimate. When outsiders take up guns and rush into your own door, it is called invasion. But when your own people take up guns to protest, it can only be called civil war. Considering that the political views of the Liberal Party are similar to the ideology of the world police, although these unwelcome liberal parties cannot apply for assistance from the National Democratic Rebellion Fund, NED, the United States should not interfere too much in their civil war. After all, these liberal parties are holding the banner of democracy and opposing the evil rule of the corrupt dictatorial president, which is a replica of the Syrian issue. If the United States does not recognize the legitimacy of the opposition in the Panu Islands, it will really be a slap in its own face. Zhang Yaping did not give an immediate answer, but said that he would immediately return to the Panu Islands to exchange views with other members of the Liberal Party before giving Jiang Chen a clear answer. In this regard, Jiang Chen also expressed his understanding. However, he only gave them a week to consider and said that he was only willing to wait a week. An indecisive government is not worth investing in. Before leaving, Zhang Yaping asked Jiang Chen a question thoughtfully. If we are in power, we will eventually judge Johnny for the crimes he committed in Panu, and then drive away Johnny International, the vicious vampire. Is this result good for you? Being able to ask such a question, it can be seen that Zhang Yaping has somewhat opened his mind. At least, compared to his naivety when he first entered the door, he has learned the vigilance that a politician should have. However, facing Jiang Chen, who came prepared, he was still a little naive. The Panu authorities are too corrupt and the investment cost is too high. But if it is replaced by a relatively calm government, I think the investment value of the Panu Islands is still very high. Although this set of rhetoric has been prepared, Jiang Chen did not lie. If the Panu Islands become his back garden, he will certainly pay to take care of it. Jiang Chen's answer made Zhang Yaping ecstatic. He suppressed the joy that surged up on his eyebrows, bowed to Jiang Chen, and then hurried away. Originally, he was a little worried that driving away Johnny International would have a serious impact on the domestic economic situation, but with Jiang Chen's promise, he felt more at ease. Seeing the satisfied young man leave the cafe, Jiang Chen, who was sitting at the coffee table, curled up a smile at the corner of his mouth. The stage has been set up, waiting for the actors to appear. Coral Island, hundreds of kilometers away from New Zealand, is also sunny at this moment. This is Kora City, the capital of the Republic of Palau. However, although it is the capital, except for this beautiful villa, there are no other luxurious buildings within 100 miles. The European-style walls painted with white paint, the green lawn and broadleaf bonsai, and the 1,500 square meter swimming pool, all of these stand abruptly in this not-so-bustling neighborhood, just like a rich man in a slum. Johnny was lying on a sun lounger on the balcony of the villa, enjoying the subtropical scenery and the gentle massage of a beauty. A few wooden fishing boats could be seen faintly in the sea in the distance. Although he could drive those poor people out of his private waters with just one word, he didn't do it. He enjoyed this feeling, the feeling of being high above, looking down on the poor people. A few months ago, he was just a poor boy in the slums of Los Angeles. He wandered around the dark bars with a few Irishmen, selling marijuana from Mexicans, had a gunfight with the Crips gang over territory issues, and then died in a dark alley one day. If nothing unexpected happened, his life should have been like this. However, life is always full of so many surprises. He still remembers the day that changed his destiny. At that time, he was arrested and imprisoned for armed robbery. Just when he was ready to spend the rest of his life in prison, he was unexpectedly bailed out by a man named Roberts, who very sincerely invited him to star in a Hollywood blockbuster. In the underground world of Los Angeles, Roberts was still a little famous, otherwise he would not have been lucky enough to be on the FBI's list. Although he has retired and become a big director now, Johnny has heard of his glorious deeds. Johnny remembered that he was very puzzled at the time. He never knew that he had acting talent, but since there was a fool willing to pay for his terrible life, he casually accepted Roberts' arrangement. Thinking about it now, he is really glad that he made the decision. The life of a billionaire, life here is like heaven. Although he is still confused until now, what is the meaning of Roberts is doing this? In that legendary movie, he didn't see a camera from beginning to end. His intuition told him that Roberts, the old fox, was definitely planning something more than just a movie. The iPad on the high table beside him suddenly flashed, interrupting his thoughts. "Boss, someone is looking for you." A face with sunglasses and stubble appeared on the screen. Aubrey, who once served in the Australian Army Special Forces, is now Johnny's bodyguard leader. After all, now that his family business is big, Johnny has to think more about his own safety. Those natives always look at him with hatred. If it weren't for these dozen armed bodyguards, he would have a hard time sleeping. Who is it? Wang Xianfeng, a Chinese. Wang Xianfeng. Johnny squinted his eyes and thought for a while, then reacted to this name. It seems that he is a representative sent by the Linhua group that Roberts contacted. To be honest, Johnny doesn't want to listen to Roberts anymore. He is now the chairman of Johnny International and the only registered legal person. He has $200 million in funds and doesn't need to be manipulated by Roberts anymore. He is now the king behind the Panu Islands, or at least a vassal. President Edward recently approved a decree that allows him to maintain less than 15 private soldiers on private land to ensure his safety. He has the right to shoot anyone who breaks into his territory without permission. It's a ridiculous order, but in front of money, even ridiculous orders become reasonable. Johnny International can't afford the $10 billion project, but Roberts told him not to worry, saying that there are 2 gold mines in South Africa that can be used as collateral, so he doesn't need to worry about the project money. Since he doesn't need to take money from him, Johnny naturally stopped asking. He is no longer as happy to spend money according to Roberts' wishes as before, although Roberts rarely orders him to do anything. Just let him do whatever he wants. Since someone is willing to spend $10 billion to improve Panu's infrastructure, what reason does he have to refuse? If this place becomes prosperous, his industry in Panu will be more valuable. By then, he will be almost financially independent and completely free from Roberts' control. Let him in. Johnny waved his hand, signaling the bikini beauty next to him to go in and leave. Yes. Aubrey nodded and opened the iron door of the villa. Chapter 272. Preparing to go to sea. After the meeting with Zhang Yaping, Jiang Chen left the cafe without staying for long. He hailed a taxi at the door and went straight back to the Hilton Hotel in Auckland. When Jiang Chen returned to the hotel, it was almost noon. Liu Yao had woken up and was shaking her bare legs, lying comfortably on the soft bed and brushing her scarf. Seeing Jiang Chen coming back, Liu Yao smiled sweetly and said coquettishly, "Finally back. I'm starving. Why don't you just call the front desk?" Jiang Chen sat casually on the bed and smiled at Liu Yao, who was lying lazily on the bed. The rosy cheeks still had the afterglow of last night. Lifting her slightly messy hair lightly, Liu Yao sat up from the bed and stretched her waist in a charming manner. "Did something good happen?" "Yes. How can you tell?" Jiang Chen asked with a little surprise. It's all written on your face." With a playful wink, Liu Yao jumped off the bed. With a pair of legs on the cool wooden floor, she reached out to take a white shirt from the hanger to cover her seductive body. She knew her charm very well and was good at showing off this charm of purity and charm. "Oh. Then guess again. What good thing happened to me?" Jiang Chen said. "Is there a prize if I guess it right?" Liu Yao pouted. "Of course. HMM." Thinking with her index finger on her lower lip, Liu Yao's beautiful eyes turned and then nodded affirmatively. "It must be a big deal." "Haha, that's right. How did you guess it?" Standing up and walking to Liu Yao's side, Jiang Chen put his arm around her slender waist and smiled happily. Last time in Sanaya, when you were with me, you seemed to have negotiated a deal as well." Liu Yao said with a smile. "So, you are really my lucky star." Jiang Chen pretended to think seriously for a moment and nodded. "How are you going to reward me?" Liu Yao said in a delicate voice. "Is one kiss enough?" Jiang Chen smiled evilly and pinched her waist. "Hate it." Because it was already lunchtime, the two of them got dressed and went directly to the restaurant in the Hilton Hotel for dinner. The lunch was not large in quantity, but it was unusually rich. There were bluff oysters from New Zealand and Boston lobsters wrapped in ice that were airlifted from the United States. In addition to these special seafood dishes, there were also many staple foods such as herb lamb and Australian steak. However, what impressed Jiang Chen the most was the traditional Maori stone hot pot. Jiang Chen had never seen such a strange way of eating before. The chef would first heat the thin stones with fire, and then wrap the food together, and put it in the hole in the ground, until it was smoked. From this method, it was a bit similar to the beggar chicken in China. However, one was wrapped in tin foil and stones, while the other was usually wrapped in lotus leaves and mud. Jiang Chen, who tasted this novel delicacy for the first time, almost ate his tongue. On the other hand, Liu Yao ate more reservedly, and only tasted each dish. After all, she is now a well-known star, and has not been injected with genetic drugs. If she wants to maintain her figure, she can only rely on the most primitive way of controlling her food intake. Jiang Chen, on the other hand, does not have so many troubles to consider. In addition to those exquisite and small delicacies, he ate 2 steaks before wiping his mouth to indicate that he was full. Looking at the empty plate on the table, the waitress was dumbfounded, and she also left a box of stomach medicine on his table very considerately. Looking at Liu Yao's smile, Jiang Chen also touched his nose awkwardly. It must be said that the service of this 5-star hotel is indeed thoughtful, to the point of being meticulous. But sometimes it is too thoughtful, which still makes people feel a little embarrassed. Putting the stomach medicine in his pocket, Jiang Chen pressed the bell to pay the bill. Aren't you afraid of becoming a fat man? Looking at the stacked empty plates, Liu Yao couldn't help but teasing. Don't worry, it's not a bad thing for a man to have a belly. Jiang Chen laughed and joked. Although he said so, the word fat is still a bit far from Jiang Chen. Glancing at Jiang Chen's flat belly, Liu Yao couldn't help but exclaimed in amazement. How did you do that? Want to know? Jiang Chen smiled mysteriously. Liu Yao nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Being able to maintain a good figure without controlling your diet is a deadly temptation for women who are struggling with whether to eat sweets. Seeing Liu Yao's enthusiastic look, Jiang Chen couldn't help but fantasize in his heart. If Lin Ling were to develop a weight loss drug, I'm afraid that 3.5 billion women in the world would have to open their wallets to him. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but want to go back to the end of the world right now. I'll tell you later. Jiang Chen laughed. The blonde waitress handed him the bill and the card reader, smiled at him, and then politely looked away. The tipping culture in New Zealand is not as deeply rooted as in the United States, but it still exists. It's just that, when you pay the bill, the waiter will not ask for it in person like you do. In order to avoid embarrassment, the waiter will also look away when entering the tip amount, so that customers who don't want to pay can press the 0% button on the base of the card reader. Because he was in a good mood, Jiang Chen did not disappoint the beautiful waitress. He directly pressed the 100% option in the tip amount column of the card reader, then took out his bank card and paid the bill. When the invoice came out, the blonde opened her mouth in surprise when she saw the 100% option, looking at Jiang Chen in disbelief. It was the first time she had seen such a generous customer. If the beauty sitting opposite him was not so beautiful, she would have suspected that this young oriental rich man had taken a fancy to her. Including the tip, the meal cost $500, which was almost as much as the half-day room fee of the presidential suite they were staying in. Looking at the back of the waitress leaving, Liu Yao pouted slightly, looked at the ceiling, and muttered with a little jealousy. Huh, are you attracted to her? How is that possible? Jiang Chen laughed. He is not a humanoid self-propelled artillery, thinking about that every day. That's good. Liu Yao smiled and said happily, where are we going next? A woman who is jealous every day will only push a man away, while a woman who is not jealous at all will hardly make a man feel that she cares about her. Jealous but not entangled. It must be said that in terms of cleverness, Xia Xiao and Aisha combined are not Liu Yao's opponents. However, it is precisely because of this that Jiang Chen only intends to treat her as a lover. She is very clear about this and did not make too many demands, because even as a lover, Jiang Chen gave her enough respect. Status is just a status. I heard that the diving project here is good. Do you want to go and see it? Jiang Chen smiled. Yes. And, I want to go out to sea on a yacht. Liu Yao said excitedly. No problem. Standing up and stretching, Jiang Chen held Liu Yao's little hand and walked out of the hotel. Chapter 273, Ship Rental Troubles. Auckland is the largest city in New Zealand, with more than 50 islands of varying sizes. Half of the city is on land, and half is on the sea, just like a garden built on the sea. In addition to the beautiful natural scenery, another major feature of Auckland is its convenient transportation. Within half an hour's drive, you can reach anywhere. Whether it is taking a boat to a small island, hiking through the rainforest, or going to a volcano for a picnic, or going surfing on the sea. Soon, Jiang Chen took Liu Yao out of the car at the seaside pier. This pier, called the Old Fisherman, was found by him on the internet in the local Chinese community in New Zealand. The owner is an Englishman named John, who treats tourists very friendly. It is precisely because of this that his business is very hot, and many people come to his pier to rent boats and go out to sea. According to netizens who have been here, the owner of this pier once served in the Australian Navy and is a good diver. The equipment in the pier is also very complete, and the rental of various diving equipment is not very expensive. Holding Liu Yao's hand, Jiang Chen walked to the office of the pier and asked about renting boats and diving. The red-nosed Englishman was very happy to see Jiang Chen asking about diving, and he happily sold him all kinds of diving suits from his collection. He also carefully explained to him the things to pay attention to when diving. When diving, you must pay attention to the depth. For beginners, I suggest not to exceed 6 meters. 6 meters, what does that mean? Jiang Chen couldn't help asking. In shallow waters, you can see beautiful scenery at only 6 meters. So if you are going to dive, I don't recommend you to rent a yacht to go far away. In deeper waters, you may not see anything after diving for dozens of meters, and there is also the danger of encountering sharks. Although he was talking about something very dangerous, John's tone was very humorous. Shark, shark. Liu Yao shuddered and looked at Jiang Chen in fear. Let's not dive. Although her English was average, Liu Yao at least recognized the word shark. Seeing the tourists showing a frightened expression, John smiled honestly and gestured with his hands. Actually, there's no need to worry too much. Most sharks don't attack people. Every year, there are 10 times more people killed by coconuts than by sharks. The only sharks that are likely to attack people are great white sharks and tiger sharks. In some places, there are even activities organized for divers to feed sharks. Jiang Chen wasn't really afraid of sharks. After all, he had even been frontally attacked by the terrifying Deathclaw, so why would he be afraid of sharks that only rely on their teeth? This is the first time I've seen a businessman persuade guests not to rent his own yacht. Seeing John's serious look, Jiang Chen spread his hands helplessly. I have to be responsible for the safety of tourists. John shrugged. Only when life safety is guaranteed can we enjoy the charm of the sea. It seems that you have a good understanding of the charm of the sea. Jiang Chen smiled. I love diving. John smiled, and a pair of white teeth appeared in his untidy stubble. But I still want to rent a yacht and a set of diving equipment. I'll take care of the safety myself. Jiang Chen shook his head and said. John wanted to persuade Jiang Chen, but at this time, a discordant voice came from behind Jiang Chen. Can the person in front hurry up? If you can't afford the rent, don't stand there and waste time, okay? A man wearing sunglasses urged impatiently. Next to him stood a woman in light clothing, who was now holding his arm affectionately. To be honest, Dai Zhengming was fed up with his compatriots, who came to New Zealand for tourism. Every December, the fresh and free air in New Zealand would be covered with a layer of haze, and there would be more garbage on the street corners. This situation would only be alleviated in late January, because by then, his compatriots would also go home for the new year. There is no doubt that, although he also wears yellow skin, he undoubtedly has a white and shining heart. After working at Microsoft for a few years, he finally got a job opportunity to immigrate overseas with his outstanding performance. Although personally he prefers Australia, New Zealand next door is also a good choice. Just like a monkey climbing to the top of a tree, he eagerly breathes the air of the free world and looks down at his peers, who look up at him with envy. Arrogance often breeds from the admiration of others, and prejudice is infinitely magnified in arrogance. He has perfectly put himself into the role of locals, and even hates the Chinese who come to New Zealand for tourism more than those locals who hate foreigners. It seems that all the behaviors of Chinese people are so uncultured and so annoying. Because they spoke Mandarin, John didn't understand what the man said, but just thought that Jiang Chen met a fellow countryman, so he shrugged and gave them the time. Can't afford to rent? Me. Jiang Chen's expression was a bit strange, and he didn't know what to say for a while. Liu Yao covered her mouth lightly, smiled and turned her head to glance at the man wearing sunglasses. Seeing Liu Yao's face, Dai Zengming held his breath for a while. Damn, what a pretty girl. Although he has seen many beauties, this is the first time he has seen one of this level. Especially that smile. When she looked back, it almost froze his little heart. Of course, perhaps because of the dimming effect of the sunglasses, he couldn't read the mockery in Liu Yao's eyes. Zengming, they may not know English, why don't you help them? The girl holding his arm blinked her bright eyes, shook his arm and said coquettishly, judging from her appearance, she should be above average. Judging from her age, she should be in college. She should be an international student studying in Auckland. The man seemed to be in his 30s. Not old, but definitely not as young as Jiang Chen. That's true. Dai Zengming sighed and walked towards Jiang Chen. Although he looked down on that country bumpkin, he still had to maintain his demeanor in front of a beautiful woman. My name is Dai Zengming. My name is Jiang. Jiang Guo. Jiang Chen was originally going to give his own name, but seeing the expression on Dai Zengming's face that seemed to have something to say, he temporarily changed his words and gave his father's name. Liu Yao held back her laughter and just gave Jiang Chen a charming look. In New Zealand, occupying public resources for a long time is a very immoral thing. I don't know if anyone taught you this when you were in China, but when you go abroad, it's better to give your motherland some face. Rather than occupying public resources, I prefer to call it a consulting business, not to mention that it's less than 3 minutes. Seeing his serious look, Jiang Chen couldn't help but argued with a smile. Dai Zengming interrupted Jiang Chen very politely and said in an educational tone, but there are people queuing behind you, right? Let me give you a very common example, which is something I have felt deeply in these years of living in New Zealand. I once saw a Chinese aunt with her grandson ordering food in the St. Heliers cafe. They occupied the cashier counter and hesitated for a long time and finally ordered a cup of mocha with a sandwich and a children's meal. Is this a veiled attack? Jiang Chen deliberately glanced behind him. It seemed that there were not many people queuing here except them. Is there any problem with this? Jiang Chen asked in confusion. It's quality. Dai Zengming looked at Jiang Chen's eyes seriously and said seriously, you mean that old lady with her child took up the queue time of everyone behind? Jiang Chen asked with a strange expression. Damn, you remember such a small thing and feel deeply about it? You are really a top-notch person. That's right. If you want to order food, please think about what you want to order before queuing up. Otherwise don't occupy the cashier's position, which will cause trouble to other people who are preparing to order food. Okay, I admit that occupying the toilet without taking a shit is a very uncivilized thing. Jiang Chen spread his hands. And you are doing this now. Dai Zengming made a serious face. And pay attention to your words. You represent the image of the country behind you. Please don't keep the word "she" on your lips. If you use insulting words to strangers in the United States, you may face prosecution. The expression on Jiang Chen's face was indescribably strange. Unfortunately, he really knew a foreigner who kept talking about asterisk every day. Roberts, who was far away in Los Angeles, sneezed, waking up the Hollywood chick who was sleeping beside him. Seeing that Jiang Chen didn't say anything, Dai Zengming thought he was too ashamed to say anything, so he continued. Even if you have a little money, please don't take those low-class behaviors abroad. Correction, I don't have a little money. Jiang Chen corrected with a little embarrassment. Then you have to pay more attention to your quality, otherwise, people will think you are both poor and low class. A flash of contempt flashed in his eyes, and Dai Zengming educated him. After that, he turned to Liu Yao like a gentleman and took out a business card from his pocket. Beautiful lady, this is my business card. I have a house in Auckland. I'm currently working at Microsoft's Auckland branch as the chief information engineer for the New Zealand division. I'm quite familiar with the generation around me. If you are interested, you can find me at the address on the business card. I'm happy to take you to enjoy the beautiful scenery of New Zealand. After saying this, Dai Zhengming didn't care about Liu Yao's reaction. He only left her with a smile that he thought was more charming and a relatively handsome back. He bypassed Jiang Chen and spoke a few words to John in a more standard British accent than the British, and then swiped the card. Seeing him walk towards the yacht with great pride and the girl holding his hand with admiration, Jiang Chen's expression was indescribably strange. "Hubby, you are underestimated." Liu Yao walked to Jiang Chen with a smile, took his arm, and said coquettishly, "It seems, yes." Jiang Chen said helplessly, "Do you need me to cooperate with you to slap your face?" Liu Yao's bright eyes flickered, her red lips curled up, and she said bluntly, "Forget it, didn't he say that? Don't embarrass the Chinese in front of foreigners." Jiang Chen teased. Liu Yao laughed out loud, pursing her lips. "I didn't expect you preferred dry humor," Liu Yao said with a smile, throwing the business card into the trash can beside her. "No, I'm serious." Although he said this, Jiang Chen's face didn't show any seriousness. Thinking about it carefully, the fake public intellectual surnamed Dai seemed to have cut in his line without making a sound. However, Jiang Chen was not interested in being as fussy as he was. He could still be humble for just a few minutes. "What were you talking about just now?" John didn't mind that Jiang Chen had left him aside just now, but asked curiously. "Nothing, just some family matters." Indeed, if you meet fellow villagers in a foreign place, you have to chat for a while. But in Auckland, you should have a lot of opportunities to meet fellow villagers, John said with a smile. "Really? Speaking of which, what do you think of the Chinese in Auckland?" After swiping the card, Jiang Chen signed the invoice and asked casually, "The food you cook is delicious. I like Chinese food very much, but it's a bit expensive." John smiled. "Anything else?" "Nothing else." John shrugged. Under Jiang Chen's insistence, John stopped trying to persuade him, but only told him to be safe and to go into the water with the captain. The rental of yachts is not cheap. The cheapest one here costs more than 2,000 New Zealand dollars for a day, which is equivalent to more than 8,000 RMB. It is more economical to rent by the hour, but except for the small boats, yachts equipped with living space are generally not available for short-term rental. In view of the rare opportunity, renting a small boat to go out to sea is not enough. The rich and willful Jiang Chen directly picked a medium-sized catamaran yacht with a length of more than 10 meters and a rear cabin with a living room, and readily paid the rental of 8,000 New Zealand dollars a day. Speaking of which, when New Zealanders come to rent a boat, do they swipe their cards to get on the boat without saying anything? Jiang Chen asked casually, after signing the rental agreement. Stunned, John didn't know why Jiang Chen asked this question, shook his head and said, "Unless they are regular customers who are familiar with this, new customers don't know the types and prices of boats, so they have to ask." "That's true." Jiang Chen smiled. Standing on the wooden board nailed with the boat piles, Su Wen asked Dai Zhengming curiously, "What did you say to that woman just now? I saw you gave her something." "Nothing, just a business card." Outside, handing out business cards is a habit and a sign of politeness. Dai Zhengming leaned a little embarrassedly. At this moment, Jiang Chen and Liu Yao walked towards them. Seeing that the beauty was still holding Jiang Chen's hand sweetly, Dai Zhengming's eyebrows jumped, but he didn't react anymore. When passing by Dai Zhengming, Jiang Chen suddenly stopped, as if he remembered something. "By the way, I heard that there is a habit of returning business cards abroad, so I'll give you one too." Jiang Chen took out his business card, but deliberately hesitated for a moment, then turned to hand it to his female companion, and laughed. "I have not been abroad very often, and I haven't learned as much about Western culture as you, so I'll do it as you do." Seeing Jiang Chen handing his girlfriend Su Wen a business card, Dai Zhengming frowned subconsciously. But thinking that he seemed to have ignored him just now, and handed the business card to the beautiful woman next to him, he swallowed the accusation that was about to come out of his mouth. When, please accept it for me." Oh. After stuffing the business card into the little girl's hand, Jiang Chen smiled mischievously, and then continued to walk forward with Liu Yao without looking back. "It's ready, let's go now." The white captain who was fiddling with the equipment in the small speedboat next to him raised his head and grinned at Dai Zhengming. "Well, let's go now." When, let's get on the boat." When, Seeing that Su Wen didn't respond, Dai Zhengming frowned slightly and turned his head. Su Wen, who was holding the gold-stamped business card, stared with her eyes wide open and was completely stunned. "What's wrong?" Dai Zhengming asked in confusion. Su Wen seemed to have come to her senses and raised her head, looking at her boyfriend excitedly. "Yes, it's Jiang Chen." "Jiang Chen? Which Jiang?" In an instant, Dai Zhengming was stunned. "Jiang Chen? The chairman of future technology. But isn't his name Jiang?" Snatching the business card from his girlfriend's hand, Dai Zhengming's eyes widened in disbelief, and then he looked up at a distance. He saw the man who claimed to be a little rich standing on a luxurious catamaran, smiling at him. However, that hearty smile was so glaring in Dai Zhengming's eyes. It was like a strong mockery. When he thought about how he had just lectured him like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world, a sense of shame came over him. His face swelled to the color of liver, and he really wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Especially when he saw his girlfriend next to him, who was looking at the luxurious yacht with envy. His face looked even uglier, as if he had eaten a fly. "Are you going to get on the boat or not? Can I start the timer?" The captain, leaning against the speedboat, saw that the two had not moved for a long time, and he couldn't help yawning and complaining. Hearing the captain complaining to him, Dai Zhengming immediately came back to his senses and said sorry to the white-skinned captain in an embarrassed manner, then quietly pulled his envious girlfriend onto the speedboat. Standing on the deck of the yacht, Jiang Chen smiled and looked at the gradually receding dock. "You really have a bad taste. But that man's face is really disgusting. It's really refreshing to see him being humiliated." Liu Yao took his arm and said with a smile, "I just smiled at him, but I think he would also think of it as a laugh, so I didn't waste my expression." Jiang Chen spread his hands innocently and teased. Putting this episode behind his mind, Jiang Chen cast his eyes into the distance, looking at the fine waves, where the sea and the sky meet, feeling the sea breeze brushing across his cheeks. He always felt that the impetuousness in his heart at this moment had all quietly calmed down. Just as he was stunned for a moment, the indicator light of the ep on his arm flickered slightly. It seemed to be foreshadowing that something unusual was about to happen. Chapter 274, Signal from the Seabed. The captain of the yacht was John's daughter, Bernice. Like her father, she was also a keen sailor. That's why, although she had blonde hair, which was typical of Caucasians, her skin was tanned. The yacht was moving very fast, traveling at 50 nautical miles per hour on the surface of the Hauraki Gulf, heading towards Great Barrier Island. Looking back, the outline of the pier had already disappeared from the sea level, leaving only a few black dots flying in the sky. Wow. Intoxicated by the free and fresh air, Liu Yao excitedly threw off her white shirt, stood on the edge of the deck, and shouted loudly into the distance. Of course, she was wearing the swimsuit she had changed into in the hotel. "Be careful not to fall." Jiang Chen couldn't help but laugh at her lively appearance. If I fall, will you come to save me?" Liu Yao said mischievously. "Of course," Jiang Chen said with a smirk, "but I heard there are sharks in this sea, but I don't know how many can be rescued." After shivering exaggeratedly, Liu Yao jumped down from the edge of the deck and gave Jiang Chen a reproachful look. "There are generally no sharks in the Hauraki Gulf, but there are many dolphins. If you are lucky, you can even see whales. But if you go to the waters north of Little Barrier Island, you can't say for sure." Bernice, who was sitting in the cockpit behind the two men, heard their conversation and couldn't help but explain to them with a smile. Surprisingly, this foreigner named Bernice actually spoke Mandarin. Although not very fluent, basic communication was no problem. As if she understood the surprise in Jiang Chen's eyes, Bernice smiled and explained, "My boyfriend is Chinese, and he taught me Chinese. There are also many Chinese tourists at the dock. Generally, when Chinese tourists go out to sea, I'm the captain and also the tour guide. Where are we now?" Liu Yao stretched her neck, raised one hand to block the sun, and looked ahead excitedly. "We are already northwest of Port Jackson. There are still 16 nautical miles to Great Barrier Island. There is a nice coral reef there for viewing. How long will it take?" Liu Yao asked impatiently. "At the current speed, it will take about 20 minutes. Bernice smiled. I'm so looking forward to it. Liu Yao looked into the distance with longing and then hugged Jiang Chen's arm again, saying coquettishly, "Can you take a photo for me? I want to take a photo with the clonefish." "No problem." Feeling the friction of the 3060, Jiang Chen smiled. My husband is the best." Muah. Liu Yao winked playfully. Jiang Chen smiled and was about to tease her. But at this moment, he felt a vibration in the forearm of his other hand. The source of the vibration came from communication? Is there something urgent in the end times? What is this? Liu Yao looked at Jiang Chen's forearm curiously. "A special electronic watch. I'm going to the bathroom," Jiang Chen explained casually and walked into the cabin. Although somewhat puzzled, Liu Yao did not ask any more questions and stayed outside tactfully. After entering the cabin, Jiang Chen immediately turned on the app and started the communication. Strange. Jiang Chen muttered to himself as he looked at the white snow on the screen. It was not a communication from the end of the world. The four-dimensional transmitter received a clean particle wave, but the wave signal could not be restored to a video signal by the decoder. Is it because the signal is not good? The signal gradually weakened. Looking at the increasingly faint white snow, Jiang Chen suddenly realized something and rushed out the door quickly. "Burnus, stop the boat. Stop the boat quickly." Jiang Chen pushed open the door of the cockpit and said hurriedly, "What happened?" The anxious voice startled Burnus, who was sitting in the cockpit, and she subconsciously slowed down. "What happened?" Seeing Jiang Chen's appearance, Liu Yao, who was standing outside the cockpit window, also looked over in confusion. Jiang Chen did not explain, but glanced at the screen of the GPS navigator and the route he had just passed. "Go back about a mile first. Go back." Burnus looked at Jiang Chen in confusion, but there's nothing there. Hearing Burnus's question, Jiang Chen calmed down instantly. He was now certain that something must be hidden under the sea. Although he didn't know what it was, it must be related to clean particles. Subcrystals? But how could there be such a thing in this world? Whatever it was, it must not be known to others. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen glanced at the screen of the GPS navigator, silently memorized the approximate coordinates of this sea area, and then smiled in a relaxed tone. "Nothing. I just saw a dolphin, but it must be far away now." "Dolphins?" Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Burnus was stunned for a moment. Then she breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "When we get to the waters near Great Barrier Island, you will see a lot of those cute little guys." Seeing Jiang Chen rushing into the cockpit so eagerly, she thought there was something wrong with the yacht. Unexpectedly, it was just a few dolphins. "Really? I'm really looking forward to it." Jiang Chen also smiled and left the cockpit. Seeing Jiang Chen coming out, Liu Yao greeted him worriedly and asked with concern, "What happened? I see you look very anxious." "Nothing. I just saw a few dolphins suddenly." Jiang Chen smiled. Although she could keenly feel that Jiang Chen was not telling the truth, Liu Yao just smiled and didn't say anything to entangle with this issue. If Jiang Chen is willing to tell her, then he will naturally tell her. If he is unwilling to tell her, then even if she asks, it will only make her look annoying. "Really? That's a pity. I wanted to take a photo with the dolphins." Hugging Jiang Chen's right arm, Liu Yao pouted playfully. The 16 nautical mile voyage soon came to an end. The waves were white, and a beautiful shadow gradually emerged where the waves met the sky. When she saw the lush green vegetation and the seagulls flying on the shore, Liu Yao cheered again. The whole afternoon, the two of them were diving near Great Barrier Island, taking photos with cute dolphins, hanging sea fish on the deck, and teasing the clonefish hiding in the anemones with stones underwater, and playing in the colorful corals. Time passed quickly, as if in just a blink of an eye, and dusk came quietly. After watching the sunset on the deck of the yacht, Jiang Chen urged Burnus to start returning. Although he wanted to play on the sea for a while longer, Jiang Chen did not choose to stay on the sea because he was thinking about something. Instead, he asked Burnus to drive the yacht back to the Hilton Hotel. With the help of the hotel staff, Burnus docked the yacht by the steps. "Don't you want to stay a little longer? You rented it for a day, and it feels great to spend the night on the yacht." Burnus couldn't help asking as she watched the two people get off the boat and say goodbye. "No, I suddenly remembered something, so I'll go back first." Jiang Chen smiled and declined her proposal, holding Liu Yao's hand and returning to the hotel. He now urgently wanted to know what was buried in the waters northwest of Jacksonport that he had just passed. He had a hunch that the thing might be related to that video. Chapter 275 Amphibious version of K1 mechanical exoskeleton. After returning to the room, Jiang Chen closed the door. A jade hand was placed on his waist. Feeling the coolness, Jiang Chen smiled and reached out to gently hold Liu Yao's hand. "Are you not coming? Can you still bear it?" Jiang Chen smiled evilly at the bright eyes. Thinking of last night's pleading, Liu Yao's cheeks were slightly red, but she pretended to be calm. "I can bear it, but compared to enduring, I appreciate your expression of enjoying it more." A fleeting touch of emotion appeared on her face, and Liu Yao pouted slightly and lowered her head. "Thank you. Rest early tonight. You are tired from playing in the afternoon." Jiang Chen smiled and brushed the hair on Liu Yao's forehead. "Yeah." With a moist light flashing in her eyes, Liu Yao pursed her lips and nodded. Half of it was because of money, and half of it was because of people, but no matter what, she did love him. Although she knew that Jiang Chen would only treat her as a lover, she didn't care about anything. She knew that his acceptance of her might have nothing to do with love, and might even be just a memorial for past regrets and a compensation for something lost. That day by the artificial lake of Wanghei University, she appeared in front of him in a milky white dress, dressed as a student. From the blurred look he gave her, she could read the meaning. However, none of this mattered. She could still feel his tenderness when he was just a lover. The only thing that scared her was that deep down in his heart, he just regarded her as a tool to vent his lust. Fortunately, it seemed that he didn't do that. After taking a shower, the two went to bed. At about 12 o'clock in the morning, Jiang Chen opened his eyes. The breathing sound coming from his ears was very even. Because he had spent too much energy during the day, Liu Yao slept very deeply. Jiang Chen got up and got out of bed quietly, put on a shirt, walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and started the journey directly. The villa was quiet. Sun Jiao and the others should have gone to bed. Without waking them up, Jiang Chen took a thick winter coat and put it on. Standing at the entrance of the living room, to adapt to the sudden temperature difference, Jiang Chen pushed open the door of the villa and walked into the dark night with snow and wind. Although it was late at night, the base was still brightly lit. Under the heavy snow, the orange-yellow flames from the factory windows could not be concealed, and the workshop was rumbling faintly. The backward production equipment can only be filled with manpower. The simple production line can only rely on the perseverance of shift work to operate. However, no one complained, because this is a wasteland. It is a luxury to be able to live with enough food and clothing and have the opportunity to contribute labor. Those highly intelligent unmanned factories before the war were basically turned into ruins in the nuclear explosion. Although Jiang Chen also thought about sending some people to the factory ruins to pick up garbage, thinking that it has been more than a dozen years since the end of the world, he had to give up this idea. "I'm afraid that all the good things that can be looted have been looted." Snow plows made from vans were driving by from time to time in the base, and armed sentries patrolled in formation. After seeing Jiang Chen, the sentry leader quickly stood at attention and saluted the marshal. "Don't worry about me, just continue patrolling." Jiang Chen smiled and said, looking at the young man whose nose was red from the cold. "Yes." The young man raised his head and chest with a red face, saluted again, and then walked forward with the soldiers behind him. Jiang Chen saw a bright golden medal on the young man's chest. He remembered that he seemed to have canonized more than 200 knights in the base. These knights who were absolutely loyal to him were the first batch of slaves bought from the 6th block, and were the pioneers who poked the first shovel in this ruin. Now these pioneers have been promoted by Jiang Chen to the backbone of the base, serving as managers or middle and upper level officers. The people following behind the knight should be upper class citizens, although they have not been implanted with slave chips. But from those eyes, Jiang Chen still saw a deep sense of awe and admiration. Has it taken shape? Standing in the snow, Jiang Chen looked around the territory under his rule, and a smile rose on his lips. As the fishbone base began to take shape, this fortress that Jiang Chen regarded as the foundation has begun to expand the fourth new land. New residential areas mean that new immigrants can be recruited, including the survivors recruited from Shengxiang town. The population of the Fishbone base has approached 1,000 people. However, the development here is almost reaching a bottleneck. The materials collected by the scavenging team are not enough for the appetite of this industrial behemoth that is ready to move. Only by obtaining a base in the present world can he bring tons of iron, aluminum and even rare earth ores to the end of the world. After pausing for a moment, Jiang Chen walked towards Jiang Lin's aerospace laboratory located in the corner of the base. Standing at the door and pressing the doorbell, Jiang Chen put his face close to the camera and spoke briefly. "It's me." Soon, the door lock made a light click sound. Pushing open the door, the cold wind carrying snowflakes swept into the house. But soon, the snow foam on the carpet was melted into crystal water droplets by the heating in the house. Closing the door casually, Jiang Chen hung the winter clothes on the hook in the entrance and then walked into the house. "It's so late. I thought there was an accident in the mechanical exoskeleton production line." Jiang Lin, who was wearing pajamas, yawned and went downstairs with messy hair. Parts were thrown everywhere, so that it was a little difficult to stand in the living room on the first floor. But this sleepy guy easily passed through the pile of broken parts without stepping on a screw. It can be seen that this guy has also reached a certain level of staying at home. "What are these?" Jiang Chen pointed to the pile of parts and drawings on the ground in confusion. Jiang Lin pulled out a chair for Jiang Chen and then sat on another chair himself. He casually replied, "The K1B mechanical exoskeleton you asked me to research. Seriously, is this thing really necessary?" The K1B mechanical exoskeleton is an improved amphibious version of the K1. While maintaining the existing protective capabilities, a pressure-resistant protective layer is installed all over the body to resist water pressure. At the same time, the slots of the movable armor on the back are changed into ring-mounted load-bearing bars for placing the cylinder that integrates the underwater propulsion device and oxygen storage device. This thing is naturally not used in the end of the world, but Jiang Chen did not intend to explain it to him too much, but directly asked about the research and development progress. "Can this thing be used now?" "It shouldn't be. Considering that the radiation value in natural water is generally over the standard, a layer of heavy metal organic material must be added to the pressure-resistant protective layer." Jiang Lin was about to explain to Jiang Chen from a technical perspective, but was ruthlessly interrupted by Jiang Chen, who didn't understand at all. "Let's put the radiation issue aside. In addition to the need to install that material, is this thing ready? There is no radiation in the water of the present world, and adding that radiation-proof material is purely redundant. The design is complete, and the parts of each part have been made into samples. We just need to assemble them, and they should be ready for use." After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Lin nodded. "Then you can help me make a set of samples now. Should it be okay?" "No problem, no problem, but the performance parameters have not been collected yet. Is it really okay to put it into use directly? Actual combat is the best way to test equipment," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "Okay then." Jiang Lin shrugged his shoulders and stood up and walked towards the workbench without trying to persuade Jiang Chen. This K1B model mechanical exoskeleton is much more cumbersome than the K1 prototype. Because considering that this amphibious equipment is mainly active underwater, the originally detachable polyethylene bulletproof plates have been fixed to prevent water from seeping into the gaps. In addition, Jiang Lin also designed a relatively heavy helmet for this set of armor. Judging from the shape alone, this set of mechanical exoskeleton basically covers every part of the body with pressure-resistant materials, except for the lack of vortex engines, heavy steel armor covering the whole body, and high-tech equipment such as neural access computers. This set of equipment is somewhat similar to power armor. By analogy, it is roughly between light infantry armor and heavy cavalry plate armor, and the cost is about 3 times that of the K1 prototype. The propulsion device at the back. To charge the oxygen storage device, you only need to expose the interface to the air. It can be fully charged in about an hour, and can be used for 3 hours. After being fully charged, Jiang Lin pushed his glasses and explained the equipment he designed to Jiang Chen one by one. It can automatically replenish oxygen. Damn, how amazing is this? Listening to Jiang Lin's explanation, Jiang Chen was secretly amazed. When there is a firefight, be careful not to get hit by the respirator at the back of your neck. Of course, it doesn't matter if you get shot in the head. Isn't the helmet bulletproof? Jiang Chen reached out and knocked on the helmet, feeling the texture of the special organic material. For underwater equipment, I have to control the overall density of the equipment. The main bulletproof capabilities are concentrated on the chest and abdomen. Of course, the helmet should still be able to defend against 1 or 2 shots, but I don't mind you trying. With the kinetic energy of the Ripper rifle, even if the helmet resists 1 shot, most people's cervical vertebrae will find it difficult to withstand that kind of pressure. After all, this is not a power armor. Jiang Lin shrugged and said, "What about this? A pistol?" Jiang Chen picked up a weapon with a strange barrel shape. "Yes, but it's for underwater use. Is the Type 11 pistol not okay? I remember that thing has a lot of kinetic energy when it leaves the barrel." Jiang Chen held the gun and played with it for a while, feeling that the feel was unusually strange. Jiang Lin was stunned and looked at Jiang Chen strangely. The higher the initial velocity of the bullet, the shorter the distance it travels in the water. Even if the bullets in the base are steel core bullets, they should not be crushed by water. They will start to roll after hitting a few meters, right? The greater the power, the closer it hits. How is that possible? Exclamation mark. But I've seen it in a movie, Jiang Chen said, dumbfounded. In his impression, the scenes of machine guns firing in the water and forming a web of bullets seemed to be quite common in war movies. It's a movie after all. Jiang Lin smiled and handed a box of thick bullets to Jiang Chen. You might as well use a laser gun instead of the Type 11. Although the energy of laser bullets decays very quickly in a light dense medium, it can still hit farther than ordinary light weapons. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.